Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Flame, Ash, time in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 51, One Step Before the Next. They all gaze upon her as though she's a stranger. Each one of her students afraid of the Ashen Demon. The one who slaughtered their mercenary friend's old company. The one who compromised many of the Empire's operations. She could have beaten them, too. But the ache in her heart when she saw Edelgard on the other side of the field became too much for her to concentrate. And that boy, an unknowing victim of his own power. Despite Suthi's overwhelming influence, she couldn't bring herself to fight either of them with her true prowess. Geralt agreeing to join their forces was a miracle, she thought. But now, they keep their distance. Her own students will barely strike a conversation with her. She wants to reach out to take them and say, "It's fine now. I'm here." Yet, there's a barrier between them. That crest stone Rhea put in her chest, she hadn't realized that it was like sinking underwater. Not until she experienced a life without it. She tries to will herself to reach back out to her students, but the stone inside stops her, steals away her yearning to say a word. She often finds herself alone on the battlefield. When she speaks at the strategy meetings, they carefully scrutinize her. No one spars with her except the boy, Geralt, and Emil. Edelgard distantly watches her as an object of fascination but rarely speaks to her. It hurts. All of it. A perpetually dull ache in her unbeating heart. She wonders if all she really was to them was a convenient superpower. Did her students ever truly need her guidance? Did they see her as a person? Or did she just ruin Edelgard's plan to rescue Monica and expose the Agarthans, only managing to make it up to her as a weapon? Byleth wakes, overwhelmed by a sense of panic. Her dream felt like drowning. Again, her inhumanity wraps around her heart, constraining her chest. "Ah, you're awake earlier than usual," Edelgard says through a muffled voice from their shared bathroom. The Flame Emperor wears a dark scarlet bathrobe as she brushes her teeth. Byleth simply looks at her without a word. Edelgard spits out her toothpaste in the sink, then walks over to the professor. As she sits on the bed, she asks, "Bad dreams?" Byleth nods. "I think there's another world. Ever since I saw that mercenary with the strange powers, I've been getting visions like you used to." "Oh." Edelgard scratches her chin. "It must be a bad world to leave you in such a state." Byleth shakes her head. "It seems similar to the old one. Maybe it's better. You didn't meet me there. I never became your professor, and you didn't have to work with the Agarthans. And you rescued Monica. Your friend is also that odd mercenary instead of me. Dorothea even said something about you being happier without the academy. That you were free of the torment, that you would have been broken had you stayed." "I see," Edelgard frowns. "So, you feel bad that you weren't our teacher? Or that you held us back? You were all afraid of me. For goddess' sake, I had to fight you. You thought I just killed people without caring." She brings her knees into her chest. "Did I ruin your plans in the old world?" Her voice chokes a bit. "I don't know. I don't remember much of what my plans were on that other world. I remember trying to place Emil as a house professor, and I remember trying to overthrow a church from the inside out. However, I also recall that you were instrumental in defeating our enemies." Edelgard strokes her forearm. "You were indispensable to the other me back then. Just as you're indispensable to me in this world. But is that all I'm good for? Just beating things?" Byleth sniffs. "You really struggle seeing yourself as a person, don't you? I'm just a glorified experiment. You had a life before the operations took that away from you. But I always existed just to be this. And I can't even do that right. What good is a weapon that doesn't want to fight?" Edelgard pauses, considering her words. "Tell me, do you genuinely believe that you're only important to me because you're useful?" "I don't know. I only made amends for disrupting your plans for Monica by being a good resource for your cause. Rhea only seemed to like me because of what she thought I was. That boy, and a lot of other people, are afraid of my power. Even my students idolized me because of how much I turned the tides of war. People only react to me based on what I can do. They don't seem to want to talk to me otherwise. Be strong and hit stuff, that's all I was born to do. Edelgard's heart suddenly feels hollow as her chest tightens. She puts her hand under Byleth's chin and softly prompts her to make eye contact. The brunette's eyes are wet with the tears she's forcing back. Edelgard smiles. No one ever told you what makes a person valuable, have they? It's not practical application. It's emotion, experience, relation, a bountiful collection of indescribable things. That's why I fight, because all life is sacred, and people deserve a chance to be more than what the world told them they could be. The same applies to you. You aren't the conditions of your birth. Therefore, your value cannot be determined by the people who refuse to see anything other than circumstance. Love isn't earned. Your value and my affection for you do not correlate to how capable you are at killing. You're right, I wasn't born to be a vessel for power, but I was still cut open for such a thing. My life, stolen away as I was forced into being a weapon against my will. You've seen the scars. I have to believe that there's more for people like us than simply being weaponized experiments. Byleth struggles to hold back a sob. Why is it so hard for me to be a person? Edelgard kisses at her damp eyes. I ask myself that quite often. The truth is, Byleth, if you lost your powers today, I would still love you. From a strategic standpoint, would it be a bit disappointing to lose someone as strong as you? Yes. But I, of all people, am not going to estimate a person's worth just by their utility and circumstances. She next kisses her lips, lingering for a few intimate seconds. L.I. Edelgard then kisses her neck. Actions speak louder than words. Byleth's breath hitches when Edelgard kisses her clavicle. Let me show you just how much you're loved. How much you're wanted. Just for being you. The professor then starts gasping as the Flame Emperor begins moving lower, kissing at her chest, her navel, and then moving downward still. Welp, that's it, Yuri puts down the report. Faerghus has fallen. All right. Balthus pumps his fist. I knew that little Spitfire could do it. And I'm sure she wouldn't find that comment at all degrading, Yuri scoffs. Constance chimes in, how wondrous. With the conquest of Ferdiad, only a Drescher remains. I can practically see Nemesis defeat in the headlines now. And then the resurgence of Novelli will be on everyone's lips. How magnificent indeed. Oh joy, Happy dryly quips. Balthus huffs, well, at least Constance is happy that we're almost done. I say we get some drinks. Constance cackles, for once, I agree with the brute. This is the perfect occasion for celebration. Fine, Yuri sighs. You talked me into it, but only because of the drinks. How about you, Happy? You've been awfully quiet. Woo. Go team, she nods. Oh, come on, Yuri frowns. They brought Cornelia into custody, for crying out loud. I kinda figured you'd be a bit happier about that. Honestly, I just want to put that chapter of my life behind me, Happy responds. She got what's coming to her. Everyone does eventually. That's all I can say about that. Balthus grins, well fine then. I'll just drink your share. Now hold on, Happy glowers. I didn't say I wouldn't drink. Solon. Thales barks as he storms through the halls of Inver Palace. Walk with me. Yes, my lord, the elderly Agarthan's voice rasps out. The dark pair pace in the direction of Inver's dungeons as Thales speaks. Cleobulus has cost us Faerghus. That's one territory under the control of that mutinous whelp, and that Gloucester boy from Leicester is certainly going to be of no assistance. As unfortunate as that is, my lord, it is to be expected from one as vain as she. And of course, the human swine cannot comprehend what's at stake here, let alone contribute, Solon says. Thales sighs, Solon, it seems you are the only one I can depend upon these days. What would you have me do, sire? Perhaps create a new kind of demonic beast? A curse to drive throngs of those lowly animals rabid? No, my friend. I do not wish to take risks and will therefore nip this in the bud myself. I have my own plans in the works, Thales answers. Ah, that explains why we're headed for the dungeon, he chuckles. I knew we were right to keep the boy. Even a med dog can prove useful. Right you are, Solon, but that brings us to your new task. Go to Shambhala and remain there. Leave only if I recall you. You do not wish me to be by your side during the final chapters of this conflict? Solon asks. Thales responds, no. I need you to protect our legacy should the worst happen. There is always hope in the ancient Dragon's Gate we recovered from Xanadu. Your will be done, my lord, Solon bows before slinking away. Thales progresses down through the sublevels of the dungeons. Past the cells, past the torture rooms, past the isolation chambers, past the furnaces, past the screams of people who may or may not be guilty of crimes. He stops at a maximum security unit, heavily monitored by a team of enforcers. He presses a button on a microphone and speaks, "Answer me, boy. Did you come here to torment me again?" A young man's stern voice answers. "I already have the dead for that." On the other side of the reinforced glass, two legs shift in the shadows, attached to a man locked in a series of chains in a straitjacket. A head hunches forward, a messy mop of unwashed blonde locks. The dim light of the room faintly gleams off of a single blue eye. Thales sneers, "Don't pester me with your melodramatic hallucinations, dog. Your time has come. You'll be needed to crush some unruly children." "I don't care about your struggles," the man leans ahead. "All I can promise you is that when I'm free, I'm going to tear your head from your shoulders. I will use your spine and skull like a mace to." "Spare me," Thales interrupts. "Channel that rage into your opponents. You may find the battle satisfying. After all, one of your targets is that little girl who left you to die." "Edelgard," the man seethes. "Edelgard. Very well, but know this, once I hang her by a noose of her own entrails, I'm coming for you next." "Ha. First, you'll need an extra advantage if you wish to kill her and that beast that follows her," Thales explains. "I've seen the unrelenting hatred that drives you. I know you're likely to survive the procedure to acquire such power, but make no mistake, it will be an agony unlike any other you've experienced." "I've already been to hell," the man spits. "I don't care about the pain anymore. All that matters is revenge for the dead. Blood for the ones who can no longer seek it for themselves. I will tear her soul and yours from your bodies and feed it to the damned. Only then will you both truly understand this torment burdened upon me. Only then will you understand the pain of those you slaughter." Chapter 52, To Adrestia. Byleth finds Shamir in the vast, hectic garage to Fodlan's Locket. The reinforced door is fully open, letting in both a stiff breeze and a view of the jagged mountains dividing Leicester from Almira. The Indigo sniper quietly cleans the muzzle of her rifle, sitting upon some crates away from the ruckus of the rest of the garage. "Shamir," she begins. "What is it?" the mercenary tersely responds. "I wanted to see how you were holding up. I'm a professional. I'm going to do what I was paid to do, if that's what you mean," Shamir answers. "I mean, how are you doing?" Byleth persists. "Your leader is my employer. That's what matters. I don't need you babysitting me because you're afraid of my feelings. I'll do my job, and that's all you need to know," she curtly says. Byleth shakes her head. "That last battle was rough. I don't want you bottling up what happened." "That's not your concern," Shamir counters. "I don't need your pity, and I don't want to waste my time with your pseudo-therapy. We are not friends. You pay me, I kill people. Anything else is personal or irrelevant." "Shamir. Are you done?" the sniper snaps. "I came here for peace and quiet. Not to be pestered by you." After that, Shamir stands and leaves. Byleth stays still, watching the mercenary go, unsure of whether or not to try to call her back. "That looked rough, kid," Geralt's grizzled voice cuts in. "I don't know what to say to her," Byleth frowns. "Sometimes there's nothing you can say," he replies. "Besides, you can't make everybody else's problems your own." "But if I can do something to help, I have to try," Byleth says. Geralt watches her pensively. "You know, you're a good kid. Frankly, it's a miracle you turned out so well. No thanks to me, that's for sure." He puts his arm around her. "But you can't make yourself responsible for every little thing. As much as you want to help, I think I'm seeing a savior complex in you. But I have to." "You have to learn to let some things go," Geralt interrupts. Maybe I've grown a little too detached in my old age, but your life is going to be miserable if you constantly relate your self-worth to how much you can do. Especially since I can tell you're going to be around a long time, like me. Take it from someone knows. Maybe. She stares at her feet. Geralt chuckles, help people because you can. Not because it makes you feel like you're worth something. Byleth gawks at him wordlessly. Oh, by the way, the old merc continues, when are you planning on giving Edelgard that ring? Byleth blushes, a rare occurrence. I was thinking of giving it to her after the war. Geralt folds his arms. You sure you want to wait that long? None of us know which battle will be our last. Sometimes it's better not to put stuff like this off. I get that you want to wait till the future is more certain, but maybe you should just go for it. Byleth nods, considering his words. From a distance, Leonie watches the pair of them while Eloise plays poker with some of the blade breakers at a nearby table. Can you believe her? Leonie glowers. She's talking to him like nothing happened. She's just like the captain that way. Eloise beams. Despite her quiet nature, she's so very personable. That's not what I was getting at, Eloise, she sulks. Ha ha. All right. Eloise cheers. Red M and weep. He lays down a hand of cards and pulls in 4 small stacks of bottle caps used as chips. The other blade breakers grumble as Eloise smirks. Are you evening listening? Leonie admonishes him. Of course, he smiles. You were telling me about how you were jealous of Byleth. The other mercs snicker. I am not jealous. Then what are you, my girl? He smugly raises an eyebrow. Leonie shakes her head. I just don't want her to wedge herself somewhere she doesn't belong. I had to work hard to get here. We all did. You should be just as upset about this as me. Why? Eloise asks. Isn't it good that the captain finally reunited with his long-lost daughter? I'm not arguing that, but try not to look at it like she's stealing him away. Think of it like gaining a new sibling. That's what I'm doing. Aren't you a little old for that? Leonie furrows her brow. Geralt raised me just like he raised you. I like to think of both you and Byleth as my little sisters. Leonie cringes a bit, Anyway, I just don't want her taking him for granted. She didn't have to earn her way here like the rest of us. Don Yabbit, he pouts as another blade breaker puts out a winning hand. Focus, Eloise. Humph, he frowns as one of the mercs deal. It's like what Edelgard said to you when you were complaining about her the other day, love isn't earned, or something like that. Family is family. And isn't more family better? Leonie glares at him, I can't believe you're taking her side. I'm not taking her side, he defends. I'm just agreeing with her. That's completely different. No it's not, she says. Regardless, Byleth was basically an orphan, Eloise explains. It must be a miracle for her that she has her family back. Why should she be left out to dry after everything she's been through? Besides, she's been fighting side by side with the rest of us for some time now. That's not. That isn't. Gah, she grunts. Why can't you just be on my side for this? I am on your side, Eloise shakes his head. I don't want you freaking out just because our family dynamic changed. Look, I get it, you're afraid Geralt won't love you as much because he has his real daughter back. But I've spoken with Byleth. She probably feels just as guilty that she's stealing him away as you are paranoid that that's what she's doing. Leonie leans her cheek into her fist as she gazes back towards Byleth and Geralt's conversation. Remember to think of it this way, Eloise continues, you're not losing Geralt, you're gaining a sister. He's not going anywhere, and I guarantee you he won't stop caring about you. Just like you can't make him not care about Byleth. So it's best to just accept it for what it is, and embrace the change. One of the other blade breakers speaks up, yeah, she seemed real scary at first, but she's actually pretty chill. You should try talking to her. Oh, frack my behind. Eloise shouts at the game. Another merc chortles as she pulls in all the bottle caps. The distraction saves Leonie from having to respond to them. Instead, she just watches Byleth, expression neutral. A map of Adrestia is projected onto the wall. The War Council sits around it, awaiting Edelgard's plan. All right, Torchy, Claude rests his elbows on the conference table, this is your neighborhood. What's the play? Much like Faerghus, Edelgard begins, we don't need to conquer the whole region. As you'll notice, she uses a holographic pointer to highlight the southern region of the map, we need only progress from Varley territory to Inver. The western region holds Novelli, Oaks, Arundel, and Heavering. In military terms, Novelli is essentially non-existent. Oaks is too minor to pose a threat. Arundel has been in disarray ever since the Empire targeted my family. Only Count Heavering is guaranteed to fight alongside Count Burgles. Any reinforcements that the other territories could have offered will have difficulties progressing through the Okama Mountains. Claude nods, so Varley, Burgles, and Aegir are the domains that will stand in our way? Well, if nothing else, fighting in a relatively straight line will be simple. Burgles, Judith ponders. That sounds familiar. Do we have a member who responds to that name? That is correct, Edelgard says. Two in fact. Caspar and Flesh both hail from House Burgles, and both are members of my division. So this is going to be personal for them? Judith asks. It will be more difficult on Caspar than Flesh. His father is Count Burgles. It will also be rather personal for the Princess of Brigid. Though Nemesis officially presided over the death of their king, the Count was the one who actually executed him. Then there's Count Heavering, who is the father of yet another one of my eagles. Claude whistles, sheesh. I'm beginning to see why your team was so invested in building this revolution. Is there anyone on your squad who doesn't take the Empire's crimes personally? No, Edelgard flatly responds. Regardless, Holst interjects, what's our first target in the area? Varley. Edelgard nods, correct. Gregoire Varley is the count of the region. He's notorious for being cowardly and abusive. For those reasons, he's rather unpopular amongst his own troops. Normally, it wouldn't take much to pressure their forces into surrender, but... Edelgard motions for Monica to hand her a drive. She then plugs the drive into the projector, and the image switches over to the profile of an austere young woman. Her burgundy imperial uniform is impeccable, buttoned all the way up to her neck. Her pale brown hair is pulled back into a bun with one long, straightened bang hanging off to the side of her face. Her steely red pink eyes burn directly into the camera. We received a tip, the Flame Emperor explains, of a prodigious young general that has been recently assigned to guard Count Varley. This is Ladislava, nicknamed the Scarlet Soldier. She's a highly decorated... Wait, Claude interrupts. Did you say we received a tip? Yes. From the same anonymous source that gave us Monica's location when she was kidnapped, Edelgard states. Are we not going to worry about that, he asks. Yuri is looking into the source as we speak, Edelgard answers. He's also vetted the information we've been given. It's accurate. Holst rubs his chin, so someone who knows about the Empire's operations is feeding us info. They must be pretty high up to know what they know. Judith folds her arms, interesting. Do we have any idea who our source is? We have very little information thus far, Edelgard says. Yuri can only speculate that they likely reside in the capital. Claude scrunches his brow, I wonder who in the Empire who's that high-ranking would be willing to turn coats. What do they have to gain? Edelgard shakes her head, as I said, all we have is speculation. Perhaps it's an officer who's grown disillusioned with Nemesis doctrine. Perhaps it's a politician who believes we may be victorious and wants to hedge their bets. It may even be a trap set by the Agarthans. Judith wryly chuckles, that is at once unnerving and encouraging in equal measure. Nevertheless, Edelgard justifies, their information is accurate and thus useful. We will utilize our source until Yuri verifies whether or not we can continue to trust them. Sounds reasonable, Holst nods. Moles are a coward's weapon. Nader bellows as he stands up, having become too bored to stay quiet. Everyone stares at him in silence until Claude speaks up, anyway, what else do we have on Ladislava and Count Varley? Chapter 53, for Varley. Bernadetta Edelgard begins. I'd still prefer it if you called me Bear on missions. Very well then, Bear, are you ready? Why yeah, here we go, she stammers as she presses a button on her keyboard. The lights to the Varley district shut down completely, leaving the city in the dark of night. Fortunately for Edelgard's forces, Bernadetta had access to her city's power grid since she was 14 and first experimenting with hacking on a larger scale. Convenient blackouts would occur every once in a while just before her father needed to speak with her. He would get distracted, cursing instead about the unreliable power and working to get it back online, often forgetting the trivial reason he was irrationally upset with his daughter. And now she shuts off the lights one final time as revolutionary forces gather on the border of the city. As soon as the grid goes dark, the Flame Emperor gives the order. Dozens of transports start up and flood into the city's limits. Imperial vehicles do their best to defend against the onslaught. Most succeed in halting the revolutionaries at the outer roads. However, the Ashen Empress quickly demolishes a blockade of Imperial vehicles, allowing 10 transports, including Edelgard's, to slip through enemy lines on a direct road to the Varley mansion. Emergency lights taint the bunker with a taut red hue. Gregoire wrings his hands from his seat. He's surrounded on all sides by Enforcer elites, including General Ladislava. This is not good, he moans. How did they cut the power? We're looking into that, sir, Ladislava answers. Gregoire jumps. I want a better answer than that. He paces around, fidgeting with his beard. The comms should still be working. I want you to send out all your forces. I don't care how many, I just want you to kill those maniacs at our doorstep. Sir, Ladislava politely bows, I highly advise against that. Tactically, I don't care. Your job is to protect me. Of course, sir, she nods. The general buzzes in over comms, ordering her troops to move out en masse. She then rallies the elites in the room with a gesture, and they stand to leave. Wait. Gregoire shouts. Where are you going? You ordered me to send out all our forces, sir. We're the best they have. I meant besides you. I need you here to protect me. That is your most important responsibility. If your forces fall, I need you to get me out of here. The city will have to fend for itself. Ladislava stops herself from grimacing. Right, sir. Edelgard's troops bottleneck a flood of enforcers at the mansion gates. Annette swats away 3 enforcers off to her side while Byleth fends off a small squad of Titanus a few dozen yards away. I have to say, this isn't quite as bad as Fhirdiad, Annette sighs, but more Imperials are spilling out than I thought. Thoron pierces through a nearby line of enforcers as Dorothea states, I keep hearing horror stories about Fhirdiad. If this is supposed to be easy, I'd hate to see what a hard battle looks like. Edelgard cleaves through 2 enforcers. Dorothea, this is your first battle. You don't have to be this far forward. It's alright if you want to hang back. No, the songstress replies as she looses Sagittai. A series of pale blue lights whistle through the air and burst upon impacting a group of Imperials. I don't want to sit on the sidelines forever. I didn't have Byleth teach me all this magic for nothing. I'll respect your wishes, Edelgard says. But I order you not to do anything rash. Keep close, and stay alert. Hilda splits a man down the middle with her vibro axe. Hey Edelgard, she coos. Don't you think it's kinda odd that someone as smart as Ladislava's supposed to be is sending out all her goons in such a messy way? It's like she's not even trying to conserve them for some sorta trap. That's keen thinking, Hilda, the Flame Emperor notes. I was just wondering the same thing. What could she be getting at? Ladislava scowls as she listens to the panicked messages relayed by her forces. Is it bad? Gregoire asks. You look like it's bad. Sir, I'm receiving numerous reports that both the Flame Emperor and the Ashen Demon are among our enemies' ranks. Their company is cutting through ours like warm butter. I strongly advise you let me pull back the Ashen Demon. It wasn't supposed to be real, the Count paces in circles. Oh, this is bad. We'll never outrun it. I have to surrender. It's the only way it won't kill me. Sir. The battle's only just started. If you surrender now, you'll insult the reputation of our great empire, the general states. We still have time to formulate a counter-offensive. To Alel with our empire, he spits. Nemesis doesn't care about any of us. You know that. I know that. If the demon and its army doesn't catch us, they will. Surrender is our only chance at survival. She gawks at him, eyes wide. You can't be serious, sir. I'm dead serious. All the Empire's talk of honor and loyalty is hogwash to inspire dumb kids into throwing their lives away. Well, I'm not sacrificing mine. They may call you the Scarlet Soldier, but if we don't give up, the only thing that'll be scarlet is our blood on the floor, General. If you just give me time. No, he barks. Send the word. I'm throwing in the towel. You can thank me later. General Ladislava glares at him. Years of working her way through the academy flash through her mind. Over 2 decades of being raised into the concepts of honor, pursuing strength, and protecting her charges at all costs, all thrown out in mere minutes by a coward. By a count. A person who, above all others, should be fighting for his domain. And now he spits in the face of everything they both stand for, denouncing both his duty and the Empire's ostensive values. Sir, she starts back up. I believe I have an idea that will allow us to not only keep ourselves alive, but also protect our territory. It's even low risk. He raises an eyebrow, staring at her with curiosity. Oh? Let's hear it. The head of the last Titaness lands on an enforcer with a crunch. Likewise, the Ashen Empress lands just past the gates to the mansion. Imperials scatter as she whips through them, and it's not long until Edelgard's forces push up, meeting with the Empress. They shouldn't be this sloppy, Byleth observes. We were thinking the same thing, Edelgard responds. Something's going on. The Empress then looks to Dorothea. How are you holding up? Just fine, thanks for asking, the songstress smiles. Though now that I have a good look at you in that armor, I can see why you always cause such a panic. You seem like a completely different person. Focus, Edelgard interrupts. They're doing something. The Imperials huddle around the entrance to the manse in a defensive manner. However, their body language indicates confusion as they suddenly trade looks. Are these orders for real? They hear one of the enforcers murmur. Only a few seconds later, they begin dropping their weapons. What is this? Hilda asks. Edelgard shakes her head. Is Count Varley already conceding? I thought that Ladislava would have prevented that. The Imperials part from the large double doors to the mansion. The entryway then opens up. Out walks General Ladislava. Her jaw is tight and her eyes cold. She stomps her way out of the mansion, flanked on all sides by her elite guard. Behind her, she drags Count Varley. Her grip is firm on his collar, and his hands are bound behind his back. Gregoire kicks wildly as he's dragged across the asphalt. What are you doing? Traitor! You can't sell me out to these terrorists. Are you even listening? Edelgard furrows her brow as Ladislava approaches her. You must be General Ladislava. I admit, I have no idea what you're doing. The general angrily tosses Gregoire forward. He lands at Edelgard's feet with an oomph. The battle is yours, Ladislava bellows. Take the weasel and do with him what you will. You're just surrendering, the Flame Emperor asks. I must say, that doesn't fit your reputation in the slightest. I am indeed conceding, Miss Hresvelg. This is my first major battle, and the Empire has already made it abundantly clear that all their bluster about loyalty and protecting innocence is. What did you call it, sir? Hogwash? I'm not sacrificing any more of my soldiers to this idiotic lost cause. I turn the Count over to you in hopes that you'll be merciful to both Varley's people and my charge. If even a tenth of what you said in your manifesto is true, then you'll hold fast to your honor. Edelgard ponders before replying. General Ladislava, you seem to care a great deal about these people. I promise you, I am not the bloodthirsty power-monger your superiors have made me out to be. If you genuinely believe in the values that the Empire superficially holds up, then I urge you not to merely capitulate, but to defect. We want to end this war as painlessly as possible. The more allies we have, the quicker we can assure victory. Ladislava gapes at her. You mean to have me join your cause? Edelgard nods. I've read your file. We could use someone of your abilities. Though, we would have to keep you closely monitored to ensure you are not a rat. Let it be known that I hate rats. That said, if you genuinely wish to preserve the well-being of this country's innocents, then I do indeed ask for your aid. Gregoire interrupts, don't do it. It's a trick. Ignoring him, Ladislava nods, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I accept your terms. I am at your disposal, Miss Hresvelg. Along with any of my soldiers I know to be trustworthy. Traitor. Wretch. Witch. Conspirator, the Count spits until the Ashen Empress stands over the man, silencing him with fear. With the lights back on, revolutionaries scour the mansion. Gregoire is promptly shoved into one of their transports as General Ladislava speaks with Edelgard. Any Imperials not willing to defect or retire are taken into custody. Byleth removes her helmet as she leans against one of the transports. Bernie, she calls over comms, we just loaded your father into a transport. How are you feeling? You really got him, she asks hopefully. Wait, you've arrested him. Does that mean he's coming here? Am I going to have to see him? Not if you don't want to, Bernie, Byleth answers. You won't ever have to worry about him again. I'll make sure of it myself if I have to. You really mean that? With all my heart. Double pinky promise. Yes, Bernie, Byleth chuckles. Double pinky promise. Chapter 54, A Moment of Respite. Byleth pulls a box of documents from the uppermost shelf of a cabinet. She rests the box on Edelgard's desk, giving the Flame Emperor a grin. Is this the one you wanted? She asks. Yes, Edelgard's face burns red. You will not speak of this to anyone, especially Dorothea. I'm sure we could find you a stepping stool, Byleth teases. Edelgard glares at her, evidently not finding the humor in her jape. Byleth simply continues to smile at her. Edelgard sighs, anyway, there's a lot here. It would be helpful if you assisted me in sorting through it. Byleth nods, okay. The professor removes a leather case from her pocket and draws out her glasses. The pair sorts out the documents, scanning through them. Edelgard watches Byleth read for a moment, studying how her glasses rest on the bridge of her nose. You know, she shakes her head, for all the times you've teased me about my height, I've never once mocked you for looking like an old lady when you have those on. Byleth gives her another grin, speak up, dearie. I can't hear you. Edelgard smirks and tuts. The professor simply shrugs, so I'm a little farsighted. I can't do everything. I suppose not, as hard as it is to believe, she gently pinches Byleth's forearm. Byleth playfully jolts in mock pain. However, the sudden movement makes her drop her leather case. The container snaps open, and out rolls a ring. Byleth blushes as she quickly picks the trinket back up. Edelgard stares, is that a ring? Yes. Why were you keeping it in your case for your glasses? Byleth shakes her head, I don't like pockets. Yes, but Edelgard sighs. May I ask what that ring is for? Geralt gave it to me. Edelgard nods, so, it's a keepsake. From my mother. Edelgard smiles, it's a beautiful ring. I haven't seen jewelry like that around in ages. Though come to think of it, it looks familiar. You might have seen it in your visions from the other world, Byleth admits. Geralt told me to give it to you. Edelgard's eyes widen, mind racing back to dreams of her dancing with the mysterious woman in black. She flushes again, remembering the significance of that ring. Byleth, she tentatively begins, is that an engagement ring? Byleth's cheeks burn even brighter, I was trying to figure out how and when to give it to you. Other Dorothea teased me in that world for not making an occasion out of it, but Geralt says to just give it to you. Edelgard's chest tightens as she responds, Byleth, I don't need you to do any grand gestures the same as Sylvain or Dorothea would. I appreciate the sentiment, but I also value subtlety in our often ludicrous lives. Still, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to. Please don't overcomplicate this, Edelgard admonishes, you didn't in the last world, and it was perfect. Byleth stammers, well. How about this, Edelgard suggests, show me the ring. Byleth holds it up, and Edelgard gently takes it, slipping it on her finger. There, the Flame Emperor says. It's done. Byleth continues to blush. Now there's no need for you to overthink it. I have the ring, and that's that. Byleth says nothing as she simmers in her own disbelief and embarrassment. Edelgard chuckles, not how you were expecting this day to go? It's only fitting, you proposed the first time, so I proposed the second. Well, proposing technically involves asking, Byleth states. Would you rather I didn't? Edelgard raises her brow. Byleth profusely shakes her head, that's not what I meant. It just happened so suddenly. Shouldn't you be the one who's used to this? Edelgard teases. I must say it is rare to see you so flustered. Do I really get you so hot and bothered? Now you sound like Dorothea, Byleth retorts. Perhaps she's had some measure of influence on me. Even so, you haven't properly replied to my proposal. Oh, of course, Byleth vigorously nods. Excellent, Edelgard beams. Unfortunately, we won't be able to plan anything for a while. Not until after this war, but nevertheless, I'm grateful to confirm that you will be by my side through all of it. Perhaps I should treat you to a nice dinner, at least. Claude, Hilda, Holst, and Byleth all gather inside an observation room. They watch Gregoire Varley through a one-sided window. The former count is cuffed to a plain metal table in an interrogation room, shaking like a leaf. Welp, Claude begins, he doesn't seem to know much about the Empire's plans to counter us. Holst agrees, this guy's a squealer. Trust me, I know M when I see M. Claude and I have been playing good enforcer, bad enforcer all morning, and he hasn't said anything useful. As frustrating as that Claude sighs, it's a smart plan on the Empire's part. Some people just can't be trusted with sensitive material. Hold on, Byleth asserts. He still has the answer to something I want to know. Let me ask him. The Lester trio exchange looks before Claude assents, okay. If you think you'll get something out of it. Byleth quietly nods and then enters the interrogation room. As she approaches Gregoire, he starts up, oh, good. Someone other than those savages. You look smart, if you're willing to listen, we can cut a crunch from Gregoire's smashed nose is quickly followed up by the clatter of his chair smacking on its side against the floor. Claude, Hilda, and Holst all jump at the sudden outburst from the otherwise docile professor. Byleth wipes the blood off of her knuckles while Gregoire writhes on the floor, clutching at his mouth with the cuffs now snapped off the table from the sheer stress of Byleth's punch. Blood dribbles between his fingers and clings to his beard as he gawks at his two front teeth on the floor. What the hell is wrong with you people? The former count screams with tears pricking at his eyes. Without a word, Byleth simply leaves him and returns to her compatriots. What was that about? Holst asks. I wanted to know if he would cry or whimper, Byleth plainly states. Both, as it turns out. Hilda furrows her brow, okay, but why though? It's a long story. All the women of the Black Eagles gather round a break room for tea. Bernadetta, often absent for these get-togethers, nervously fidgets in her chair, stirring her tea mindlessly. Bernadetta, Edelgard coos. The timid hacker startles, looking up from under her hood, why yes, Edelgard. I just wanted to know how you were feeling since we captured your father, Edelgard says. Petra nods, we are hoping that you are feeling better now that he is being imprisoned. Dorothea adds, it's not every day a shitty father like that gets what's coming to him. Hopefully, you can be a bit more relaxed now, yeah. Bernadetta nods, hopefully. Maybe. We'll see. It's alright, Bernie, Mercedes chirps. We'll be here for you as long as you need. Thanks, Bernadetta blushes. But maybe we could change topics now to not be about me. Dorothea grins wide, oh, very well. So, Edie. Edelgard cocks her head, what? Edie. What are you playing at, Dorothea? We're not idiots, Edie, the songstress smirks. Mercedes snickers, we can see the ring on your finger. Edelgard flushes, ah, yes. That. Were you hoping we wouldn't notice? Dorothea quips. So Byleth finally proposed. Mercedes interjects. You have to tell us all about it. Technically I proposed to her, Edelgard sighs. Must we do this right now? Yes, Dorothea and Mercedes answer simultaneously. The songstress scratches her chin. This means we have to have an engagement party. And a bachelorette party. Wait, how do those work when they're both bachelorettes? Just one party will suffice if you must throw one. Edelgard rubs her temples. As they speak, Monica forces herself to grin. Congratulations, Miss Hresvelg. Again, Edelgard smiles. You may simply call me by my first name, Monica. The redhead stammers. Mercedes takes Monica's hand to ease her. Very well then. Edelgard, Monica murmurs. Good job, Dorothea teases. That only looked moderately painful for you. Oh, let her be, Mercedes lightly scolds. Monica blushes as she stares at her teacup. Regardless, Petra interrupts, turning to Edelgard. We are to be congratulating you. Thank you, Edelgard nods, still slightly embarrassed. Dorothea faux pouts, that's so sweet. If only someone would propose to me and make me her queen like you did for Byleth. Petra blushes. I am unsure of how to be responding to that. It's okay, Petra. I'm only joking, the songstress reassures. For now. Bernadetta pulls her hood over her eyes. Why do I feel like a seventh wheel? Chapter 55, The Burgleys' Name. General Burgleys calls Lieutenant General Randolph. Rebel forces are confirmed en route from Varley County. Count Burgleys, Irvin Burgleys, and Waldemar Hevering sit around a glass table on the highest balcony of the Burgleys mansion. Though, the military family being what it is, the structure is more accurately described as a fortress, fifth largest on the continent. Their tea is interrupted by the approach of the newly christened Randolph. Easy there, boy. We knew this was coming, the older man sighs, looking away from the gray clouds. Besides, what did I tell you about my name? Sir Leopold, he awkwardly corrects himself, we need to take this more seriously. Especially since Ludwig was an ass and is hoarding most of the military resources at Fort Mercers. I heard you the first several times. Perhaps the boy is right to be concerned, Waldemar suggests. It would behoove you to exercise more caution, friend. Wald, I haven't lost a single fight in all my time serving the Empire. Even without Ludwig's forces, the rebels stand no chance. Leopold shakes his head. You've never had to fight the Ashen Demon. Reports also say they have a member of House Goneril, Geralt of the Blade Breakers, and Nader of the Almiran Royal Army, Waldemar notes. Any one of those would be, what do you like to call it? A proper challenge? But together they pose a sizable threat, and if the rumors of the demon defeating Nemesis are true, then... They aren't true, Leopold cuts him off. If it beat Nemesis, then why isn't the Emperor dead? That's just street-level superstition. Besides, I'm not alone, either. Isn't that right, boys? Irvin, a young man who has the appearance of an older, more stern Caspar answers, that's right, father. We're going to crush the rebels by the end of today. Waldemar scrutinizes the young man, eyeing over his prickly blue hair and scarred jawline. Your father had mentioned that you also recently earned the rank of Lieutenant General, correct? Yes, Count Hevering, Irvin nods. Just a little over half a year ago. I respect your potential and ambition, Waldemar smiles. Would that my son displayed any such diligence. Even so, I must urge caution. Your father may be strong, but it's not always best to follow his example. Young and overconfident soldiers often meet their ends early in life. You must be a clever boy, use some measure of prudence, particularly considering you are next in line to take over Burgleys. I appreciate your counsel, Sir Hevering, but I wish to follow in my father's footsteps. Today is my biggest opportunity to prove myself in the eyes of His Majesty while simultaneously crushing our enemies. Ha! Leopold barks. Don't let him get in your head, son. He's always offering me such counsel. And I always just keep doing what works for me. My guts never steered me wrong before. And what of you, boy? Waldemar looks to Randolph. The other two men follow Hevering's gaze, awaiting his response. Randolph furrows his brow. I'm of a similar mind to Count Hevering. Not only do our enemies possess several fearsome soldiers, I'm told that among their ranks is also the Princess of Brigid. Vengeance is a powerful motivator, and she possesses the reputation of a fearsome and blinding assassin. Waldemar chuckles, at least one of you has a head that's screwed on straight. Leopold roars a thunderous laugh, have some pride in the Burgleys name, boy. You're one of us. You need to start believing in your own strength and ours. Waldemar sighs, and what of the elephant in the room? That particular report is unconfirmed, Leopold glowers. That may be so, Waldemar folds his arms, but there's still a considerable possibility that it's true. What report? Randolph asks. We need to be aware of any possible factors entering this fight. Leopold clenches his jaw as Randolph and Irvin look at him. There may be a chance that Casper and Flesh have joined the rebels. What? Both men shout in unison. Father, Irvin shakes his head, you told us they ran away. They did, the old man huffs. There's just a possibility that they ran to that Hresvelgwitch. Randolph rubs his temples. Flesh always did despise the military, but I have a hard time seeing her joining up with the enemy. Even so, Waldemar interjects, all three of you need to be prepared for the possibility that you'll have to fight them. Damn it, Flesh, Randolph scowls. Why did you have to do this? A pointed silence fills the transport as it draws near Burgleys. For some minutes, only bumps and clinks are heard while the vehicle jostles along the road. Petra sits between Dorothea and Edelgard, muscles taut, eyes focused, jaw tight. Across from the songstress and the princess sit Casper and Flesh. The blue-haired mercenary bounces his knee in fear, and his step-aunt tries to regulate her breathing through closed eyes. Flesh was not and is not religious. In that respect, she identifies deeply with Edelgard. Both little girls taught to be cynical of the broken world around them. Both little girls who kick and scream back at that world. When Casper tracked her after she ran from home, it didn't take much for him to convince her into joining the Flame Emperor's team. Yet, she now finds herself praying to a goddess she doesn't believe in. A goddess who, if the professor's accounts are to be believed, died well over a millennium ago. Still, she prays. She prays mostly for the life of her brother and for the lives of her family and friends. There are ferocious fighters on both sides, beings that are superhuman in almost every respect thanks to the power of crests. Casualties are a given, especially for people such as herself and Randolph who possess no such power. Can we count on all of you? A deep, synthesized voice breaks the silence. They all turn to the source, the Ashen Empress, seated across from Edelgard. Byleth folds her arms as she continues, this battle is charged with profound emotion, but we've all come too far for that to do us in. We need to know whether or not you three will be able to keep things in check today. Edelgard nods, she's right. Whether it's fear, she looks to Flesh and Casper, or anger, she then turns to Petra, we can't afford to allow our emotions to overcome us. We have too much at stake, all of us. Petra grimaces, I am having understanding of this. But do not be mistaking me, for the sake of my people, Count Burgleys must be paying for his crimes. One way, or the next. Easy for you to say, Casper winks. My father's a real monster on the battlefield. I could never keep up in training. And I watched some old vids of his fights in the Brigid and Almiran conflicts, That's enough, Casper, Byleth interrupts. No one is invincible. He can be beaten. Casper frowns, yeah, maybe by someone like you, but he's going to wreck shop against anyone else he faces. Edelgard shakes her head, I'm well aware of the threat he possesses. I will make him yield myself if I must. No one, not even him, will stand in the way of my ambition. I should very much be liking to challenge him first, Petra interjects. Dorothea places a hand on her knee, Petra, please. This isn't like you. Dorothea's right, Byleth nods. You're our best sword fighter. We can't afford to lose you to a reckless decision. Are you saying that I am no match to Count Burgleys? Petra glares. The Empress retorts, no. One-on-one, I believe it's a fair matchup, but I don't want you stumbling into a trap or making sloppy mistakes out of anger. Please, Dorothea insists, listen to Byleth. Don't be careless, for my sake. I know you've lost your family, but don't make me lose you. And don't make your queendom lose you, either. Remember what happened to Catherine. Petra sighs, very well. For the sake of those who are counting upon me, I will not pursue vengeance. She turns to Edelgard, but you must be promising me that justice will be done. I will do what I must, Edelgard answers. Revolutionary transports park in a curved line several hundred yards back from the edge of the Burgleys manse. Turrets, both manual and automated, are affixed to the battlements of the outer curtain wall, trained on their targets should the revolutionaries cross their threshold. Byleth, Edelgard begins, I'll need you to infiltrate the facility and incapacitate their outer defenses. The Ashen Empress nods, yes, but I have something in mind that will expedite the process. All right then, do what you must. The Empress moves over several parked transports, meeting with the Golden Deer. Well, if it isn't Little Miss Invincible, Claude grins as he and his team exit the vehicle. I take it you have a plan in mind to get past that wall. Byleth looks at the Deer's Gremory, Lysithea, I need you to warp me onto those parapets. The mage shakes her head, I don't think I can move you such a great distance. Claude scratches his chin, hold on, I think I have something for that. He opens the transport door and digs around under a seat, it's here somewhere. Ah. There we go. He pulls out a long case and gives it to Lysithea, I was hesitant to give this to you considering your health problems, but we can consider this a one-time deal. What is it? The Gremory asks as she takes the case and opens it. A gift from our friend, Governor Jr., Claude smirks. It won't be as effective for you without the right crest, but it should get this particular job done. Lysithea pulls out a long staff with a spiny head of bones, crest stone affixed in the center, I've heard of this relic. Lawrence called it Thyrsus, Claude explains. It should increase the potency and range of your magic. Again, you won't be able to use it to its full might, but it'll be enough to teleport me onto that wall, the Empress interposes. Lysithea grips the staff with a tight fist, very well then. If it brings a quicker end to this fight, then let's go. Thank you, Byleth nods. Lysithea stands a few paces away from the Ashen Empress, as does Claude. She waves the staff as she performs the spell. Gold-green runes surround the Gremory, then they likewise ring around Byleth. In a flash of light, the Empress disappears. Her world shifts from grassy plains to a concrete walkway, her allies are replaced by startled enforcers. "The Ashen Demon," one of them cries. The Imperials open fire on her. She ignores the shots recoiling off her armor while she whips her blade through the turrets. As she walks down the wall, slicing through the high-grade defenses, one particularly burly enforcer approaches her with a massive war hammer. "The Ashen Demon," she says, "I wonder if your skull is as black as your armor. I reckon it will look just as good on my wall, either way." The Empress says nothing as she stares at the giantess. The beefy woman's hammer whistles through the air as she swings for the Empress' head. The hammerhead folds into itself as it collides with the dark helmet, Byleth's head merely shifts to the side. The enforcer gawks at her hammer for a second. A second which Byleth takes to lunge for her. The Empress elevates her by the torso and tosses her off the wall. The rest of the enforcers gape at the Empress from a distance, offering little resistance as she finishes cleaving through the rest of the turrets. As Byleth slices through the last battlement, she moves to the center of the wall and turns to the edge with the intent of leaping down. Before she does so, a colorful movement catches her eye from a distance. She observes a certain purple-haired mercenary standing on a tower deeper into the fortress. That boy again, she ponders. She doesn't waste time thinking about it further, instead jumping down to the ground level and landing by the front gate. She summons fire, bursting the spell against the steel and heating it to a dull orange. She whips Lady at Midnight through the metal, slicing it apart. Next, with the structure loose, she pushes against the gates, and they topple forward. With the gates crashing into the road at the front of the fortress, Edelgard presses a button on her transport's dashboard, buzzing into all the other vehicles, everyone. Their outer defenses are down. Storm the fortress. Their transports roar as they start up. They pass over road and grass alike as they rage towards the structure. The crashing waves of vehicles halt around the entrance, unloading masses of revolutionaries onto the internal grounds. Imperials scramble to the defense, lining up in the inner walls and outer court, though they fail to bottleneck their enemies as the Ashen Empress holds back their line. "All right, Randolph, Flesh murmurs amidst the chaos. I'm coming for you. Chapter 56, Honor. The Ashen Empress peels off from the rest of her squadron, much to the confusion and frustration of the Black Eagles in the outer court. Hey! Where's she going? Dorothea shouts. Edelgard responds as she smashes her axe through an enforcer. I'm not certain, but knowing her, she's found something important. Casper's voice cracks as he launches another Imperial with his warhammer. Does she need to go right now? I was hoping she would stay to help us deal with my father. Dorothea sighs. I didn't think she'd do the whole mysterious dame thing in the middle of a damn fight. Flesh has already run off. We don't need Byleth running either. Focus on the battle. Edelgard commands. Whatever she's up to, we have to trust her. For Byleth's part, she sprints towards a watchtower. The enforcers surrounding the structure open fire on her, though she elects to ignore the hail of bullets. She simply whips her sword through any Imperials in the way, letting the rest scatter as she charges for the entry doors. She slams into the doors full speed, crumpling them under her velocity. From there, she finds and pries open an elevator shaft. She uses her weapon as a grappling line to quickly zip upwards until she arrives at the top floor. Enforcers offer little in the way of competent resistance as she fights through the level, eventually finding a small stairwell that leads her to the roof. As she arrives onto the top of the watchtower, Shay's voice calls out, "So, you saw me after all?" The Empress responds, "Your voice and manner of speaking are different, as is your aura. You're the boy, are you not?" This confirms that your previous scuffle with the Ashen Demon was indeed reality, not a dream. Arvel observes. Yeah, which means they didn't kill me for some reason. Or it thought you were dead, bear in mind. It committed that same error in judgment at the climax of our first encounter, as well. You're speaking to someone, aren't you? The Empress' synthesized voice interrupts. Shay glares at her. Oh yeah? And how would you possibly know that? Tell me, boy. Is the one you're speaking to the one who took control of your body in our previous encounter? Can it sense my presence? Arvel asks with a start. Shay chuckles as he answers the Empress. I didn't think the Ashen Demon would be so nosy. That's my business, ugly. Not yours. At that, Shay awakens his Agarthan power. An orange and gold aura bursts from his figure, dulling to a purple. Jagged halos rim his wrists and nape. His eyes shift to crimson, his skin pales with white markings. Shay draws his swords, pointing one towards the Empress. With every encounter, he says, I get stronger. And I've been training, too. I'm not going to go down like the last time we fought. You don't need to fight at all, Byleth retorts. I can tell you don't know where that power comes from. And you're a different person from the one I fought before, even though your body is the same. Whatever happened to force this power into you, stand down and let me cure you of it. It's actually bargaining with us, Arvel states. I think it knows to fear our potential. Yeah, I think I'll pass on your kind of help, Shay spits back. I've seen what you do to your enemies. He launches himself towards the Empress. Their blades clash as embers fly. He flourishes around her, striking at her from all sides and testing her defenses. She swiftly blocks every blow, discerning his pattern of attack. When she calculates his strategy, she takes a quick sidestep, and lunges her elbow forward in a predicting reflex. Shay finds himself unable to stop his momentum and speeds himself right into her armored appendage. Her elbow collides with his cheek, forcing him to stumble back. Fuck, he sighs as he spits out a bit of blood. You made me bite the inside of my mouth. That's because you talk too much during battle. Thanks for the pointer, he shouts as he again charges for her. She jumps back, avoiding his blow as he swings down into the ground. She lands on her back foot and lunges to his left while simultaneously launching fire just to his right. The spell explodes, blasting him to his other side, the direction in which the Empress dashed. She catches him midair with her knee against his kidney. As they both land, Shay's aura dampens while he rolls in pain. I've had dreams about you, you know, she tells him. How flattering, he rasps, struggling to his feet. You fought another me in another world, but I am not weakened and less intelligent as that incarnation was. Even then, you couldn't truly match me without the favor of circumstance, she states. The me you face now is far stronger, far more skilled. You aren't a challenge for what I am. Let me help you. Another world? Arvel questions. For what reason does that sound familiar? How generous of you, Shay scoffs at Byleth. I don't care what creepy dreams you've been having. I'm going to stop you. Stop, Shay, she barks. I don't want to hurt you. How the hell do you know my name, he points. I'm not certain. It simply came to me now, she shakes her head, surprising even herself. But that doesn't matter. You need to understand both the Empire and this power of yours come from the same very dark source. You must. A sharp pain spontaneously surges through his head, and he screams out in a layered voice, enough of your lies. I'm not letting a beast like you ruin the paradise I worked so hard to attain. You and those other little lordlings had to interrupt my paradise last time, but that won't matter with the Fellstar and her saint destroyed in this world. Just be a good little thing, and leave the paradise my kind created alone. At that, the Flukel charges at Byleth with a furious burst of energies. I hope you are watching, Ingrid. Today is the day I avenge you. Sylvain cries out. He urges his horse to charge for Byleth, swinging the lance of ruin towards the mercenary. She deflects the blade with a counter-strike, nearly unseating Sylvain from atop his mount. Sylvain seethes while magma boils around them. I hope you are ready to part with your head, because I mean to lay it at my friend's grave. He dashes towards Byleth again, but she jumps, avoiding his thrust. As she glides through the air above him, she swings her sword down, slashing across his back. He screams as blood splatters onto his mount's hind. Still, he persists. This is nothing compared to the pain she felt. Sylvain again barrels towards Byleth, but she crouches low, dashing forward. She splits the horse front legs, causing the animal to fall forward. Sylvain crashes against the rocky floor as his mount topples forward, landing on him. Byleth cringes at the awful sound of bones snapping. She turns to see the cavalier trapped under his horse, spine severed. He can't even move his head as he gasps out, "Forgive me, Your Majesty. May fortune favor you in battle." Byleth watches as his body goes limp, thinking back to Mercedes' tears at the deaths of her other friends. Something in her heart aches, something beyond time. The Flukel's blades clash against the Ashen Empress armor while she's lost in thought, sparks of energy violently scattering as she's launched through the parapets on the top of the watchtower. She regains her composure midair and whips Lady at Midnight upwards, anchoring it into the ledge of the tower. She retracts the blade, pulling herself back up to the rooftop. The mysterious entity before her jeers as she climbs back onto the roof. I suppose it would be a bit much to hope for a simple fall to kill you. Nonetheless, nothing will stop me from ridding this world of you and your kin once and for all. The Flukel leaves glimmering after images as they rush down Byleth. The Empress casts aside her sword and catches the Flukel's wrists before the blow lands. Ingrid. Annette. Sylvain, she grits. My students died because of your interference in that world. She begins twisting, and the Flukel cries out in pain. Byleth headbutts them, causing layered voices to holler out as they stumble back. Byleth stomps towards the entity, but they quickly slash their swords against her armor. The dark plates of her suit are cleaved, and she bellows. Even so, she lunges forward, punching the Flukel in the face. They drop their blades as they tumble to the ground. The Ashen Empress then picks them up by the throat. Go on, the entity taunts. Make this simple and kill me. I can see that you want to. No, her synthesized voice asserts in response. Enough people have died because of you. I'm going to free that boy of you, not kill him. The Flukel chortles. There is so much irony here, it's laughable. You, the weapon that won't kill, for one. And your precious Edelgard, she and all her friends would have been better off in this world if they just kept their heads down. Look at everything the Agarthans gave her primitive species. Whether it's this world or the other, the Empress retorts, you and the Church are the same. Controlling humanity from the shadows, forcing cruelties upon them and telling them to be grateful for it. And why should you care? The Flukel sneers. It doesn't matter if it's Edelgard or that saintly beast. Both women were the same, they lied, stole, killed, and conquered for the sake of their ambitions. You never seriously mattered to them. What? You thought it was your bland personality that won them over? The only thing that attracted them to you is your power. You were the key to making either of them succeed, and they both realized it. Maybe, she says, but that doesn't change the fact that you need to be stopped. Before the entity can reply, Byleth slams them against the ground. Then she follows up with a swift strike to their temple. The transformed aura of the Flukel flashes away, leaving Shay unconscious in his base state. I'm going to come back for you, Byleth murmurs as she retrieves her sword and jumps down from the tower. An arrow of energy flies directly towards Randolph. The Imperial commander just manages to dodge at the last second, taking a searing nick to his jawline. He charges for his attacker, Claude, but when he swings his vibro axe, Hilda jumps in and deflects it with her own weapon. Hilda winks at Randolph, "Be a dear and surrender for us, K. I will not stain the honor of my family and the Empire by standing aside, even if I have to die," he shouts as he struggles against her. He curses himself as he fails to push her back any, to which she simply pouts, "I'm sorry. I'm a lot stronger than I look. I know it's not very cute." Randolph grits his teeth, "I suppose that's to be expected from a Goneril." "Enough." Claude barks. "Randolph, was it? You guys can't win this fight. I know that Governor Aguirre and Nemesis are hoarding the rest of your forces at Mercer's and in Bear, so backup's not coming. Stand down before we have to kill you. It doesn't need to end this way." Randolph hops back and swings at Hilda, screaming, "A Burgleys never surrenders." She once again deflects the strike from his weapon, knocking him off balance. She uses the opportunity to kick him in the stomach. As he reels back, Claude fires another arrow, this time through Randolph's left thigh. The Imperial stumbles to the floor. He struggles to steady his breathing as he looks around him. There in the barracks, one by one his forces fall, staining the floor, bedding, tables, and other assorted furniture with blood. The Golden Deer relentlessly cut through his troops with an enthusiasm he's only known his step-brother to inspire in an army. "Damn it," he murmurs. Randolph plants his axe into the ground. He pushes on it for support as he strains back to his feet, readying his weapon. "You'll have to kill me if you want to stop me," he rasps. "I'm sorry," is Claude's simple response as he knocks Fail not. "Wait," a high-pitched voice shrills out. Both men and Hilda turn to see Flesh sprinting up to them, narrowly avoiding gunfire and the swings of blades. "Flesh?" Randolph bellows. "What are you doing here?" "Mr. Regan," she cries. "Don't kill him." "Gods damn it!" Claude gasps. "There's always something to make this harder. Come in, kid. Now's not a good time." "He's my brother," she pleads. "Let me talk to him." "I'm sorry, but he doesn't seem like he's willing to wait." Flesh promptly ignores Claude as she runs up to Randolph. "You have to stop fighting." "Flesh," he shakes his head, "I'm sorry, but I can't. I can't throw the lives of these men away for nothing." "So you'll let even more die," she glowers. "It's not that simple. We're a part of Burgleys now. If I surrender, it would dishonor our family. To hell with their honor. Nothing the Empire does to its citizens is honorable. That's why I left, damn it." By now, tears stain her cheeks. "I don't care about honor. I just want my brother back. You were always so much kinder than anyone else here. Leopold can die with his desire to fight, but I can't lose you." Randolph's brow furrows. "Flesh? Listen to the kid," Claude advises, "Fail not still trained on the Imperial." "Hey," Hilda interrupts, "I know a thing or two about stubborn big brothers who love to fight." She approaches Randolph, weapon relaxed. "But you're a lot gentler than Holst, I can tell. What's worth more, your family's name and the Empire's reputation, or the lives of your people? The sooner you call it a day, the fewer people have to die in this gross war. And your sister would get her brother back. That sounds like a pretty decent deal to me." Randolph takes one last look at his enforcers striving to fight back against the deer. The Imperial sighs as he clutches his fist. He kneels down to Flesh, relaxing his injured leg. "Okay," he whispers to his sister. In a louder volume, he commands, Everyone, stand down. This battle is lost. The few remaining enforcers distance themselves from their attackers and look to their commander on his knees. They exchange looks before reluctantly casting down their weapons. Flesh hugs her brother as he grunts from the pain of her sudden embrace. Then Claude relaxes his bow, though his grip on it is still tight, as he walks towards Randolph. "Thank you, for doing that," he says to the Imperial. "I know it wasn't easy. I just ask that you be merciful to my men." "Don't worry," Claude grins, "I have no intention of spilling any more blood than necessary." Flesh nods at both Hilda and Claude. "Thank you. Both of you. It means a lot to me to have my brother back." "Don't mention it," Hilda winks. "What are sisters for if not keeping their brothers in line?" Chapter 57, A Bargain for Mercy. Hayek. Nader bellows as he brings his axe down upon Count Burgles. Leopold catches the haft of the weapon mid-strike with his vibro gauntlets, the blade just stopping an inch before his skull. All around them, enforcers clash with Amirans and Black Eagles in the vast entry hall of the fortress main building. "Count Burgles." Nader grins. "They say you're unbeatable. And they call me the undefeated. It's a match made in heaven." Leopold smirks as he knees Nader in the stomach and pushes him back. "Correct me if I'm wrong, Almiran, but Nemesis has beaten your forces before, hasn't he?" "Filthy crest strength," Nader grumbles. "If you didn't have that magic blood, I'd have already beaten you in a fair fight." "As much as I'd love to prove you wrong," Leopold gives a toothy smile, "I don't have time to deal with you. I have to take down the leader of your little rebellion." Before Nader can retort, Irvin appears, and swings his own vibro axe against Nader's. "Cheap trick just to write me off," Nader glares at Irvin. The Burgles heir replies, "Trust me, I'm more than a match for you." "Tough talk coming from a pup," Nader spits. He headbutts Irvin, causing the Imperial to stumble back in pain. Nader charges for him, but before he can strike, Irvin recovers, and preemptively counters with his own axe. Nader barely shifts his blade in time to deflect the strike. "So the pup's teeth are growing in, eh? How cute." "Careful," Irvin retorts, "keep talking like that, and this pup might just bite out your throat." "Ha!" Nader laughs as he again dashes towards the budding Burgles. Irvin takes a defensive stance, readying himself for a fearsome attack, an attack that never comes. A magical gale of pale blue energy spontaneously forms around Nader. The magic winds of Excalibur gash deep into his body and throw him high into the air. As the man ragdolls, desperately trying to find any sense of balance, a cutting gale, a scion wave of piercing wind, soars through the air and cleaves through Nader's torso. Both halves of the man land some yards apart in a spray of blood as Irvin screams, "Waldemar! What the hell are you doing?" The verdant mage approaches with his own team of enforcers, "Saving you from a fight both you and your father would regret, boy. He was an honorable fighter," Irvin admonishes. "That fight was mine alone. Taking him by surprise like that is so utterly." "Enough, boy. What's done is done," Count Heavering shakes his head. "We can't waste Imperial resources on honor, especially not when these rebels have pushed in so close to the capital." "Fine," Irvin seethes. "Let's just go help father. We can finish this discussion after the battle." On the far side of the entry hall, Leopold's forces clash directly with the Black Eagles. "Has anyone managed to find Flesh?" Dorothea asks. "No, I haven't," Mercedes answers. "I pray she's okay." "Focus," Edelgard commands. "Flesh will have to take care of herself for now." "Presvelg," a deep voice cries out. Leopold and a squadron of his finest approach the Flame Emperor directly. Petra and Caspar rush to Edelgard's side in response. Petra grits her teeth, "This is my first time having seen this man in person. He is a fearsome creature, much like many predators in Brigid. But I am having experience cutting down such predators." "Easy, Petra," Edelgard chides. "Father!" Caspar shouts. "Please. Stop this before anyone else gets hurt." "I didn't realize I raised a coward," Leopold grimaces. "Save what little honor you have left, whelp. Face me yourself." Edelgard begins, "Caspar." The blue-haired revolutionary ignores Edelgard as he paces up to Leopold. I know I can't beat you, but there are others here who can. If you would just... Enough talk. Count Bergliez takes an offensive stance. Caspar mirrors his movements, readying his warhammer. He charges for his father with a mighty swing. Leopold swipes his vibro gauntlet against the head of Caspar's weapon. His sheer strength deflects the blow. With his other hand, he reaches out and grabs Caspar by the throat and lifts him off the ground. Caspar squirms in his unrelenting grip. Leopold derides, even without a crest, you still had the potential to at least put up a fight. But you can't get over yourself, can you? I won before the fight even started because you already psyched yourself out. Bergliez. Edelgard roars. Put Caspar down, and face me yourself. Leopold drops his son, finally, a real challenge. The Bergliez general rushes towards the Flame Emperor. His gauntlets clash against her shield in a shower of sparks. He repeatedly strikes against her protection to no avail. Do you always hide behind? Edelgard thrusts her shield forward, knocking back Leopold. He smirks as she tosses aside her shield and axe with a glare. Leopold laughs as he sprints towards her, swinging his fists. She grabs each strike with her palms, much to his surprise. The heat from the knuckles on his vibro gauntlets sears against her own armor as she grimaces. Ha, he chortles. You're pretty, strong, he struggles in her grip. Leopold finds himself surprised yet again. Even with his crest strength and arduous training, the small girl in front of him traps his fists tightly in her grip. Edelgard begins squeezing down with all of her strength, and the Count's gauntlets start warping from the pressure of her fingers. How is this possible? He grunts. Didn't you listen to my manifesto? She chides. I am the sole survivor of the experiments brought on by the insurrection of the Seven. Your insurrection? Edelgard loosens her grip, allowing Leopold to distance himself. She retrieves her axe and shield from the floor. Let us finish this quickly. Just as she finishes speaking, Excalibur bursts around her. However, its slashing winds barely hold any effect against her as she stays firmly planted on the ground. Waldemar and Irvin then sprint up by Leopold's side. Wald, the Count barks. What's the meaning of that cheap shot? How curious, Waldemar ignores his friend. Her affinity for and resistance against magic appear to be much higher than most others. She must not have been lying about those experiments. Edelgard looks to her opponents before forming a plan. Count Bergliez, I propose a challenge. Oh, he glares at her. You are an honorable man. I offer you a duel, she announces. Whomever wins lays claim to victory for this region. The loser, predictably, must surrender. Don't accept her challenge, Leopold, Waldemar states. It's a trick of some sort. Edelgard maintains her poker face. Count Hevering isn't entirely wrong. If she were to lose, her forces would continue the fight regardless, pushing on until the Empire was decimated even without her. Still, appealing to Bergliez's sense of honor is the quickest and least violent method of ending this conflict, so she's taking it. Fine. Leopold disregards Hevering. I meet your challenge. On two conditions. First, it's a fight to the death. Second, I want to face that Brigid princess you have with you in your stead. If you're truly a woman of honor, then you'll let us settle our blood feud. Edelgard opens her mouth to respond, but Petra cuts her off. I accept. Dorothea's eyes widen as she runs up to Petra. No. You can't do that. Let Edie fight him. Edelgard nods. I'm of a mind with Dorothea. Let me face him, and the fight's guaranteed to end in our favor. Petra shakes her head. I am having appreciation for how much you both are caring. But this is not simply about revenge. I am being Queen of Brigid in a couple short years. I must be showing my people that we are strong. That we can stand against those who are wronging us, and it is the only way I can be putting my father's spirit to rest. She winks at her friends. Do not be worrying yourselves. I will not be letting my anger consume me. I will fight with caution. She then takes Dorothea's hand and kisses the back of it, and when I am winning, I would like to formally take your hand as my future Queen of Brigid. The songstress blushes as she ogles, fine. Just don't do anything stupid. Yes, Songbird, Petra smiles. I promise I will be coming back for you. Very well, Edelgard nods. You may face him. Imperials and revolutionaries alike form a circle around them, creating an impromptu dueling arena. Waldemar grumbles something under his breath, and Irvin scolds him for it. Leopold and Petra enter the circle. Berglis is the first to make a move. He sprints towards Petra with a swinging fist. She dances around his move, putting some distance between the two of them. You are being very fast and strong, she observes. But your movements are, what is the word? Cumbersome? Clumsy. Sharp words coming from a toddler, Leopold smirks. I am admitting, a single blow from you could take away my life, Petra nods. But a single swing of my quick blade will be doing the same to you. Then I guess I shouldn't be so reckless, the Count grins as he takes a defensive form. Petra dashes towards him at blinding speed. Just as she reaches his front, she jumps above him in a flourish. Nonetheless, he's fast enough to grab her ankle midair. The assassin responds by curling forward and slashing her vibro sword against his gauntlet in a deft movement. Her blade cleaves through the metal, slashing a bit through his forearm. His grip loosens, though it was enough to throw off her balance. After the split second these movements take place, Petra crashes onto the ground, causing her allies to wince. Leopold throws his fist down towards her other ankle, but she slips out of the way just before the blow. His knuckles crack the stone floor as they impact, sending pebbles of debris upward. But Petra is already back on her feet lunging for him. He backsteps, shielding himself with his gauntlets. The tip of her sword scrapes against the metal of his weapons as he distances himself. You certainly put up quite a fight for a pampered princess with no crest, he laughs. I am not pampered, she retorts. I am a princess of Brigid. I must be strong enough to face assassinations at all times. I must be a hunter, not the hunted. And I must seek justice for my people. Well said. Leopold smirks. A noble sentiment, even if it is foolhardy. Petra rushes him down once again. The Count winds his fists up for a counter blow, but Petra quickly retrieves a dagger from her belt and throws it at his elbow in a single fluid motion. The blade embeds itself into his appendage, severing some nerves. The Count hollers out in pain as he keeps one arm up in defense. Petra's sword scuffs off his gauntlet, leaving another gash. He responds with a swing of his fist, but she rolls under his arm, continuing her attack. Her blade slashes against the side of his abdomen, spilling steaming blood onto the stone below. Leopold then finds himself frozen, feeling the heat of the tip of her blade faintly poking into the flesh just above his kidney. You have me at a disadvantage, princess, he chortles. The fight is over, she answers. Not while I draw breath. He attempts to elbow her in the face with his good arm, but she retaliates with the thrust of her blade. Petra burrows her vibro sword through his spine and out of his diaphragm. The large man collapses to his knees, then his side as Caspar, Irvin, and Waldemar all look away. I am Petra Macnieri, Crown Princess of Brigid, she stands over a gasping Leopold. You have killed my father, and so I return you to the earth in exchange, that you may be feeding her, instead of taking more life away from her. My men, he rasps. Spare my. Petra kneels down beside him as he stills. She closes his eyes with a sigh and a frown. Waldemar starts raising his arms to prepare a vengeful spell, but Irvin grabs him. Stop, he asserts. It's over. Father gave his life so that we could live. Besides, he points to the nearby doors to the grand entrance hall as the Ashen Empress and several more revolutionaries pour inside, we wouldn't stand a chance. Count Hevering relaxes his posture as he grimaces, why yes. Forgive me. Dorothea cries something incoherent as she jumps into Petra's arms. Meanwhile, the surrounding enforcers begrudgingly drops their weapons to the floor. Well done, Petra, Edelgard nods with a smile. You've won us the day. Revolutionaries clean out the fortress while enforcers are rounded up and placed in their own dungeons, being sorted through for questioning, defection, or imprisonment. Dorothea clings to Petra, showering her with sweet nothings born of a combination of relief and excitement over their sudden engagement. Claude and his golden deer approach Edelgard with sorrowful looks. Edelgard frowns. Claude, I'm sorry about Nader. Does he have any family or other loved ones who need taken care of? Claude puts a hand on his head and sighs. He has a daughter. I've already taken steps to ensure she has people to look out for her. I'm more concerned about what I'm going to say to Judith. The two were pretty fond of each other, in spite of all their bickering. Byleth, having removed her helmet, shakes her head. He was always friendly and brave. I should have been here. I don't believe so, Edelgard replies. You mentioned that the mysterious Agarthan mercenary was here, correct? Someone like him could have swayed the battle if unchecked. Agarthan mercenary? Claude asks. What Agarthan mercenary? Well, Byleth explains, he's not technically Agarthan, but there's some kind of... A revolutionary sprints up to their group. You Miss Empress, ma'am. We checked the location you gave us. We couldn't find the mercenary anywhere. He already regained consciousness. Byleth gawks. Edelgard scratches her chin. His vitality is certainly superhuman, that's for certain. Claude folds his arms. So when exactly were you two going to tell me we had a superhuman merc coming after us? What's his power? Crests? Magic tech? No, Byleth shakes her head. I don't know what it is, but it's ancient Agarthan magic. I think it has to do with what made Ceros lose the war. Edelgard gapes. If that's true, then the source of that mercenary's power is roughly 1,000 years old. If he's that dangerous, Claude scolds, why didn't you just kill him? Because it's not his fault, Byleth sulks. The power in him, it does something to him. I don't think he even knows what he is. He just thinks he's protecting people from me. I want to find a way to cure him. That's, sweet, Claude sighs, but remember we're at war. We have to kill a lot of people who've naively bought into the Agarthans' lies. This guy is no different, other than he's way more dangerous. I'm sorry to say it, but if he dies, he dies. Edelgard takes Byleth's hands into her own. I loathe to tell you this, but... I concur with Claude. We know our war brings many sacrifices, and that mercenaries may be one of them. It's noble that you desire to save him, but you have to consider the greater consequences if he lives. Byleth stares down at her boots. I hope it doesn't come to that. No one else should be forced to live and die as a weapon. Chapter 58, Reconciliation and Revelation. Edelgard strolls around the perimeter of a makeshift graveyard. Burgley's mansion sits some ways behind her as she somberly takes in the sight of neatly packed mounds of dirt lined up in vast rows. Modest headstones adorn each burial. Revolutionaries continue to dig and fill out graves, expanding the back end of the cemetery while various groups, which she assumes are friends and comrades, huddle together in different places. She recognizes the faces of several of them, though she doesn't know them personally, as a mix of speakers, holy and non-holy, say final words or read off rites. Edelgard notes Mercedes and Marianne as they recite what few verses from the saints' doctrine that Byleth, Yuri, and Claude were able to recover from Fodlan's hidden past. She hates that these people are buried so close to the war zone that killed them, but there are no other options. Many who die fighting for her cause don't have homes to which their remains can return. The ones who do, such as the Almiran troops, can't be sent back due to the logistical nightmare of moving bodies en masse internationally. Even if they had the means, they most certainly don't have the time, and she can't risk any movements that could give away her position for a prolonged period of time. She finds Nader's grave. A vase of flowers sits at the headstone, no doubt from Claude. She suspects that he'll soon receive a myriad of flowers from Judith, his daughter, and countless other Almiran youths inspired by the strongest warrior from their homeland. Edelgard herself lays a small bouquet of gladiolus atop the mound. She then hears footsteps and turns. Byleth approaches to her side, gazing at the grave and saying nothing. Edelgard shakes her head. Many people say that once one crosses the line of killing for their own sense of justice, or their own beliefs, it gets easier and easier to take a life. That they become crueler and more detached, and that people are simply reduced to numbers in their perspective. That isn't true. Every time we have these battles, I bear more and more weight of those who die under my orders. I've sacrificed countless lives for my beliefs, and many more will continue to perish as we head into the heart of the Empire. It's as though all those souls are scrutinizing my actions from beyond the grave. And that's to say nothing of the people who will lose their lives in the fight to stabilize the world in the wake of the Empire's defeat. We've come too far now, Byleth responds. Too many have died to give up here. Too many still live who deserve a better world. Don't misunderstand me. I've no intention of giving up, Edelgard nods. And well spoken. We've chosen this path because the world needs to be better. People cannot continue to be trampled underfoot by those with near unrestricted freedom to abuse their power as they please. We make necessary sacrifices so that no one else will be slaughtered for unnecessary reasons. It's cruel. It's cold. But it's the dilemma the Agarthans forced upon our world. I yearn for the day that humanity's problems can be solved with words and not steel. If all goes well, we will be the ones to create that world. Hopefully, Byleth's brow furrows. Speaking of worlds, I realized something about that mercenary. Oh, did you? Edelgard looks at her. What did you say his name was? Shay. Byleth nods. Whatever or whomever is giving him powers knows of the original world. They referenced Rhea, well, Cyros, and my place in the conflict between you two. They also said something about how this world was paradise. Edelgard's eyes widen. Paradise? And if they know about the original world? You mentioned yesterday that they may have caused all this. Could this being have somehow interfered with Nemesis and Cyros' war to intentionally create this world? I have no idea. Byleth shakes her head. Their power is not too dissimilar from Suthi's, and I've been getting those alternate memory flashes because of them. Whatever they are, they must also be able to interfere with history. I'm sure a world like this is exactly what they want, only with us out of the picture. And what of Shay? Does he know any of this? She asks. I don't think so, Byleth answers. He dismissed my dreams as creepy when I tried to reason with him. He seems pretty sold on the idea that he needs to kill me, and he's given no indication that he actually knows anything about me or Agartha. Byleth, if he has a power similar to Suthi's, he could end up as a threat not only to us, but to you, Edelgard states. I know you don't want to hurt him, but you have a right to defend yourself. Byleth looks away without saying a word. Edelgard sighs and continues, that's not the only thing bothering you, is it? Byleth briefly pauses. Whatever is controlling him, they said that you only noticed me because of my powers. Edelgard folds her arms. How many times do we have to have that conversation? I already told you, you have great meaning to me beyond your military application. Even if you lost your abilities, I'd still care for you. But they were right. Weapons don't have personalities. Would you have noticed me in the first place if it weren't for my powers? Byleth asks. Would you have noticed me if it weren't for mine? Edelgard retorts. The truth is, our lives would be radically different if it weren't for our talents. I would still either be the daughter of a governor or emperor with all her many siblings, depending on the confusing circumstances of time. And you, likely would not have even had a life to begin with if it weren't for your powers. Regardless, we wouldn't have even met. But wouldn't that be better for you if you had your family back, instead of settling for me? Byleth. Don't say that. Edelgard barks, face red with fury, drawing the attention of several nearby cemetery visitors. She takes a breath as Byleth stares at her feet. I apologize. I shouldn't have raised my voice. My point being, I would be a radically different person, and therefore I cannot say what would or would not interest that hypothetical me. Only that I know who I am in this life. I'm drawn to you because I feel you are a kindred spirit. We are both women who've suffered the machinations of ageless entities dehumanized for their ancient agendas. We can only be what we are, and what we are is the same. Byleth keeps solemnly gazing downward without saying a word. So Edelgard continues with a slight grin, Byleth, there are many things that draw me to you beyond your peculiar circumstances. You're full of heart, even throughout all this fighting, showing compassion to everyone, including our enemies who have been misguided. You're kind to all our friends, striving to make all of us our best selves. You're intelligent, and not just tactically, but you light up in amusing ways when you discuss Nabatean history, cooking, or fishing. You have a curious habit of drawing stray cats and dogs to you, only to shower them with affection. And, if you'll permit me to be a bit superficial, you're quite beautiful. I find you to be very easy to look at, though it is considerably harder not to stare. And for the record, I don't think Geralt would appreciate it if you exchanged your life for the lives of my own family. It would be a cruel thing for me to wish upon anyone. Byleth faintly, though insincerely, smiles. I'll have to take your word for it. Edelgard furrows her brow as she takes Byleth's hands. My love, by any chance, have you ever been diagnosed with anything? For example, I know that Dorothea takes antidepressants. Though I'm not an expert in the field, it seems as though you struggle with something similar. I don't know, Byleth shakes her head. I've always been so busy that I've never really thought about it. Forgive me if this sounds harsh, Edelgard says, but your poor self-image persists beyond reason, and words alone don't seem to be able to assuage your pain. You may well have an undiagnosed disorder. Even if you no longer have a creststone attached to your heart from the other world, it may have still left an after effect of some sort on your emotional state. And that's to say nothing of the trauma that comes from experiencing personal tragedies, fighting 2 wars, and maybe fighting a third depending on how much you remember from that, other world. I don't know what to do about that, Byleth admits. Edelgard sighs. We can't keep having this same discussion over and over when these feelings of yours rear their head. Make no mistake, I will stand with you through it, but we need to find a more productive solution. Perhaps we'll get a chance to contact a counselor or other sort of professional and formulate a treatment for you. If not now, then at the end of the war. All right, Byleth reluctantly accepts. Good, Edelgard smirks as she pecks her fiancé on the cheek. Lord Thales, Governor Aegir stammers, are you certain you cannot spare us any more resources? If they managed to defeat Burgleys, then... No, Thales flatly states over the video call with all the irritation he can muster. But, sire. Thales huffs, I have already lent you the aid of that oversized bird, and you've retained more Imperial forces than I would have preferred. You will have to make do with what you have, Governor. Besides, my agents tell me you have the Dark Knight figure in your ranks. Death Knight, SI. I don't care. Milord, perhaps it would behoove us to consolidate our collective forces for one decisive battle, Ludwig suggests. The terrorists have proven themselves more formidable than we've previously imagined, but if we combine our power with Lord Nemesis, those dogs' fates are sealed. Thales chuckles, my friend, they have proven themselves more formidable than you have imagined. And while I appreciate your attempt at strategy, you are placed on the board precisely as needed. I'm afraid I don't understand, sire, Ludwig sweats. Thales explains, if you are lucky, your new toys will be able to turn the tide of battle in your favor. In the meantime, you are a useful stalling tactic until I'm finished with my new weapon. The procedure is long and excruciating. Though we are in its final stages, said weapon has already killed 6 of my specialists in his delusional rage. As frustrating as his strength is to work around, it will be a useful means to an end. That will be all, Governor. As you say, sire, Ludwig bows in confusion as the call ends. The man's chest heaves with a blend of fear and resentment, boiling over until he screams, Hubert. The towering, enigmatic figure answers from the corner of the room, seemingly appearing out of thin air, yes, sir. I need you to rack that scheming brain of yours. Ludwig's chins and jowls tremble as he rants. Use spies. Use poisons. Dig a Dempunji trap around the perimeter of Mercers, for all I care. Do something to exterminate or cripple those terrorists. Hubert squints at the man before answering, how sage, sir. Defeating a powerful enemy using subterfuge is a wise policy. Worry not, I have been concocting a plan to deal with the vermin of this world since the very start of this war. Well. Ludwig presses. What is this brilliant plan of yours? Hubert chuckles, the best way to undermine such a ferocious opponent is to turn them overconfident. Make them feel secure in their hold. Let them stand on top of you, then topple them from underneath. Sir, the enemy will close in on the gates to our fortress, but there will be no need to fear. I have made my own special arrangements with our outer defenses. I have also found a way to feed their army false information. It will be a slaughter. The look of surprise on everyone's faces will be satisfying, to say the least. Ludwig's breathing steadies. Ah, yes. Good good. I can always count on the snakes to poison the apes and the dogs. As you were. Hubert bows as he leaves the governor's office. Waiting for him outside is Ferdinand, who walks with him as he keeps pace through the hallway. Hubert, Ferdinand begins, I cannot say that I am comfortable with such underhanded methods to best our enemies. It is most certainly ignoble. In fact, I cannot say that I am comfortable with this entire conflict. Not after considering the participants of both sides. Ferdinand, Hubert answers. I understand your hesitation, but our enemies leave us little recourse. If we wish to triumph, this is our only solution. Thus, I will ask, are you prepared to do what you must in the coming battle? Hubert, I'm not sure if I. Ferdinand. Hubert interrupts. Our entire country is depending on you to destroy our enemies. So I will ask again. Are you prepared to do what you must? Chapter 59, The Stubborn Old General. How are you feeling? Byleth asks Edelgard on the road to Mercer's as she fiddles with the dark helmet in her lap. Eager, she answers. Once Mercer's has fallen, only the capital remains. Then we'll have the systemic power over the dying vestiges of the old empire. That's good, Byleth nods. But I meant, how are you feeling about fighting Governor Aegir? He's the person most responsible for things. Edelgard frowns. You're such a kind-hearted soul that I hesitate to share my true feelings on facing that man. Byleth strokes her hand. Please. I stood by your side through all sorts of your twists and turns. And I can imagine what you feel about him. Edelgard then smiles. I appreciate your words, but the truth is, there's a part of me that wishes to visit upon that man every horror he's put my family through. It's not healthy to go into detail. What will you do once we corner him? Edelgard shakes her head. Don't worry, my love. As always, I will keep my anger in check. I have no interest in compromising the greater good over personal vendettas. As you have said in the past, justice over vengeance. Speaking of Aegir, Byleth shifts the subject. I've been meaning to ask. What's happening with his son? The data I stole from Anber Palace 5 years ago suggests that the governor has been exceedingly tight-lipped about his family, and I have no idea what's happened with him in those last 5 years. I believe his name is Ferdinand, Edelgard answers. I recall meeting him once as children. Though come to think of it, wasn't he one of your students? Yes, Byleth replies. That's what scares me. I have no idea what to expect with him, but I don't want to hurt him. Understandable. As long as he has some sense and cooperates, I see no reason to harm him. Byleth sighs. You know, Ferdinand was the one who invented free public education in the other world. Oh really? Edelgard asks with wide eyes. So that was the sort of person he was like. Byleth nods. Education seems like common sense now, but at the time, it was a critically novel concept for your ambitions. Though Ferdinand was naive and a bit ignorant, he took his responsibilities as a future leader very seriously, loathing the very ideas of corrupt politicians or power imbalance. Edelgard grins. Well, let's hope that this Ferdinand shares similar sentiments. Yes. I just wish that Aegir hasn't brainwashed him too much since he's been so much more guarded, Byleth states. Regardless, we. Lady Edelgard. Ladislava shouts over comms. At our current pace, we will reach Fort Mercer's in approximately 20 minutes. Thank you for the notification, General Ladislava, Edelgard responds. We'll begin final preparations shortly. Are we really doing the same plan again? Edelgard nods. Fort Mercer's is said to be impenetrable. Warping you inside is still the most efficient way to take down their outer defenses and open the gates. How does that saying go? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've never heard you say ain't before and it scares me. Byleth grins as she puts on her helmet. House Burgleys is a fortress of the old world. Built of ancient stone, decked with parapets, and laid out with an old-fashioned interior design. By contrast, Fort Mercer's has been renovated time and again to keep pace with evolving Agarthan technology. Monolithic steel walls shield the structure on all sides. Rather than bear a standard flag, the sigil of Nemesis shines as a bright cerulean light above the towering, retractable blast door gate. Titanus patrol the perimeter. Watchtowers and drones dot the fields and hills surrounding the megastructure. Spotlights scan around the facility with a particular focus on the entrance. Lastly, 4 piercing towers line along the front wall of the fortress, 2 on either side of the gate. Each tower is made of a dark, indefinable metal. The gaps in their metal plates reveal a murky, humming blue light in the interior of the towers, and sharp cobalt needles jut out of their peaks. From a distant hilltop, Edelgard and her forces scan over the fortress with visors. "What the hell are those towers?" Edelgard asks. "If I recall correctly, they're called Viscom," Byleth explains. Claude gapes as he stares at the structures through his visor. "And what is that, exactly?" "It's a bit difficult to explain," Byleth responds, "but they can summon dark magic on a target. Electricity of some kind." Claude sighs, "So they're lightning towers. Great. The robots were bad enough. We had better deal with them quickly," Edelgard asserts. "No doubt they already know we're here." "Right," Claude nods. "Lysithea, are you ready?" The Gremory glares at him. "Even though you originally told me this was a one-time circumstance, yes." She turns to Byleth. "From here, I can warp you close to the gate. You should be strong enough to break in if you need to, but I recommend using your cloaking technology first. If you're lucky, there might be a guard nearby with access. I do see a security checkpoint of some kind." The Ashen Empress nods as she turns a dial on her utility belt, fading from view. "Just don't screw this up," Lysithea states as she waves Thyrsus. In a flash of runes, the Empress disappears. She warps in on the main road several yards in front of the main gate. She casually walks through the moving spotlights while approaching the security station to the side of the main door. The guard inside keeps a careful view on the distant revolutionary forces through some monitors. On his breast, she sees a keycard. The Empress pries open the door to the small office, startling the guard. He sputters as he tries to react, but she swiftly strikes him against the temple, rendering him unconscious. She removes his security pass and takes it to a panel on the left side of the main gate. The panel squeals as access denied flashes across the machine's interface. "Damn it," she seethes. "Time to break in the old-fashioned way, I suppose." Just as the Ashen Empress draws out her weapon, the panel chimes as it suddenly shifts to green, and the gate starts fully retracting. "What the hell?" She scans around her environment. She quickly notices the spotlights all steering their beams away from the entrance and the Titanus begin behaving erratically. Likewise, Edelgard and her company notice the same events through their visors. Claude cocks his head. "Did Byleth do that or? What is going on?" Edelgard squints. The Titanus are standing down. As she mentions, the Titanus step away from the main road and line up. They rest their blades and shields as they slouch, and their lights dim down. The lights on the Viscom similarly dull as their humming fades out. "Please tell me this is some super secret strategy you didn't tell me about, Torchy." Claude grabs Fail not in caution. Alarms start screaming as Bernadetta cuts in over comms. Edelgard? I'm picking up a lot of chatter from the Imperials. They're panicking about someone sabotaging their defenses. No trace of hacking." Claude shakes his head. "So someone beat us to the punch. This has to be our mystery friend, right? I guess that lends credence to the theory that they're a high-ranking member of the Imperial Army. No one else would have this kind of access." "That's the most likely explanation," Edelgard answers as she gawks. "Still, don't let your guard down." The pops of gunfire break out, and they focus their attention back on the entrance. They witness the Ashen Empress slicing through enforcers as a sea of foot soldiers and military transports reactively flood out of the main entrance. Byleth suddenly reappearing from her cloaked state has clearly caught many of them by surprise as some of the foot soldiers attempt to rush back into the fortress for safety. Then, the revolutionaries notice aerial transports. The vehicles exit from the roof of the fortress and rumble through the air as they lower and hover over the land transports. "Why are so many of them leaving the stronghold?" Edelgard asks. "They're casting aside a considerable advantage." "That's why," Claude points. She observes small teams of technicians trying to unlock the doors to the Viscom and climb onto the backs of the Titaness as Claude continues speaking. They're desperate to get those defenses back up. Governor Aguirre definitely doesn't want to lose this one. Abruptly, the Titaness and Viscom whir back to life. The large automatons shake off the technicians and start cleaving through Imperial transports with their massive arm blades. Imperial aerial transports quickly regain altitude to avoid the onslaught, only for the monolithic Viscom to call magic-fueled lightning down onto the airborne vehicles, knocking them out of the sky one by one. Holy shit, Claude gapes. Whoever's been helping us clearly has some issues they need to work out. This is brutal. This might be our best opening before they either destroy or regain those defenses, Edelgard states. She activates her earpiece. Everyone. Back in the transports. We're storming the fortress now. Their vehicles kick up clouds of dirt and sprays of mud as they roar down the hill towards their target. Between their traitorous defenses and the encroaching revolutionaries, the Imperials either load up into the remaining transports or flee back inside the fortress on foot. The transports disappear back into the structure swiftly enough, but the enforcers on foot fail to escape as the revolutionaries catch up with them. Edelgard's forces exit their vehicles and spill out, joining the bloodletting started by the Titaness. Byleth watches the machines carefully, keeping on her guard. Still, the automated monstrosities, curiously enough, don't attack her allies. As the revolutionaries sweep up the entrance to the fortress, the outer defense again dull down. Even so, they keep a close eye on the Titaness in an exercise of extreme caution. The Ashen Empress meets up with Edelgard and the rest, just as confused as them. I wonder, Byleth begins. This must mean that our anonymous source is here somewhere. Edelgard scratches her chin, but who could possibly be behind this? As if on cue, a scarlet blaze of light appears ringed by runes. A tall man in a black-caped officer's uniform with equally dark bangs steps forth. He lets out a soft, menacing chuckle as they draw their weapons upon him. Wait, the Empress barks. That's Hubert. Hubert. Edelgard gawks at her fiancé. Hold on, Claude frowns, I recognize you from Gloucester's farmhouse. You're the guy that turned those people into demonic beasts. The one and only, he quietly cackles. And the Ashen Demon has the right of it. My name is Hubert Vestra. Right hand to Governor Aguirre. That is to say, the previous right hand. Edelgard stares at the man. A deluge of memories squeezes her chest tightly. First, he's tripping in front of her as his father nudges him forward. Though his knee is scraped, he stands and bows to her, tears in his eyes. Then they're playing Pegasi Knights and rescuing an imaginary prince, arguing over who gets to marry him. A game he suggested, that is, until his father finds them and slaps him for treating her like an equal. Suddenly, they're in her room that night. He's admitting that he can't be a Pegasus Knight, not because he's a boy, not because Pegasi are an outdated form of transportation, but because he's afraid of heights, and he makes her swear not to tell anybody. Then, he's calling her Lady Edelgard, and he doesn't play with her or have sleepovers anymore. Hubert, her voice cracks. My apologies for attacking your forces some months ago, Lady Edelgard, he bows. But you must understand, I was not aware that you and the Flame Emperor were one and the same. I had been led to believe that you were no longer in this mortal plane. That I failed in my duties to protect you. Hubert, she shakes her head, willing her tears away, why would you serve these people? After everything they've done. His sinister expression immediately morphs into a furrowed brow and pursed lips. I did not cooperate with them at first. However, I saw Governor Aguirre's fearful son and realized he needed someone to protect him just as you did. I could not fail twice. As loath as I was to serve under these vile serpents, it was a necessary evil to both keep the peace and protect the only other highborn who was worth a damn. After all, there was no one who could truly and competently challenge their authority until now. I'm sorry, Claude grimaces, but you've got a face not even a mother could trust. Torchy, you can't seriously take this guy at face value. He's been ingratiated in Adrescha's inner circle for years. In a rare moment of confusion and vulnerability, Edelgard finds herself torn between how she would typically react in such a scenario and how she wants to react. Aye, she stammers. Hubert, sensing her conflict, bows yet again. Forgive me, Lady Edelgard. I don't mean to place such a burden on your shoulders at such a critical juncture. Your ally speaks clever words. I am well aware of the effect I have on others, and that I am not to be trusted. It would be prudent to observe me, and I bear you no ill will for it. The Ashen Empress interrupts. In the other world, Hubert was endlessly loyal to Edelgard. If there's anyone we can count on to have her best interests at heart, it's him. You guys can't be serious, Claude huffs. Other world. Hubert tilts his head. What on earth are you raving about? Never mind that, Edelgard shakes her head. Can you defend yourself? Hubert malevolently snickers. Naturally. I dare say that my dark magics are a match even for Thales. I can see I'm outvoted, Claude glowers. Fine. Just know that I'm gonna keep a close eye on the new guy so he doesn't feed us a poison apple or tie us to railroad tracks. The Almiran prince is predictably suspicious, Hubert hums, but I must say that it is quite curious that the infamous Ashen Demon, of all beings, seems to trust me so. I'm not sure whether I should be amused or flattered. Enough idle chatter, Edelgard tries to assert, though she can't prevent the grin spreading on her face. We still have to topple Aegir. Chapter 60, Callers of Wind and Death. We've succeeded in opening up the fort, Claude notes as they reorganize their forces outside Mercer's. Now we just have to fight our way through the inside. Unfortunately, it seems like a facility of this size is gonna be a bit labyrinthian, and somehow, I doubt that Aegir is going to meet us for battle the same way Burgles did. Hubert, Edelgard interjects, do you know the quickest route to the governor? Fear not, Lady Edelgard, he bows. I have spent a considerable amount of time assisting Ludwig in developing emergency protocols in the event anything should go awry. He's currently holed up in a panic room at the heart of the facility. Excellent, Edelgard nods. The Ashen Empress can spearpoint the charge. That should make piercing our way to the governor a simple matter. You're really going to follow his lead? Claude crosses his arms. Just like that. Byleth retorts in her synthesized voice, this is our best bet, and I'm more than strong enough to handle any traps that might be thrown our way. And Hubert is not the sort to put Edelgard in unnecessary danger. I appreciate your skepticism, Claude, Edelgard grins. And I'll be counting on you to keep an eye on things. Yeah, that wasn't my point, he shakes his head. Lady Edelgard, Hubert interrupts. There is one matter. The governor's son is sheltered with him. I ask that no harm befall him. Byleth shoots Edelgard a look. The Flame Emperor replies, as long as he does not attempt to fight us, you have my word that no one will hurt him. I will do everything in my power to ensure that he escapes this unscathed. That is all I ask, Lady Edelgard, Hubert bows. Very good then, she affirms. Now Byleth, too. A horrendous screech scrapes their eardrums and reverberates off of the steel walls of the fortress. Only a second later, the megastructure and its surrounding valley are lit up with fiery oranges and yellows as a beam of intense heat screams through all 4 Viscom towers in a row. The towers burst, bend, and crumble as they topple to the ground, molten steel dripping onto the concrete below. A gargantuan creature, a mix of feather and scale, soars through the air and drops down, crushing and clawing apart Titanus which futilely resist the avian dragon. Damn it, Hubert seethes, I didn't think he'd be fool enough to actually use that beast. Wait, you knew about this thing? Claude points. Yes, Hubert retorts. I also know that Aegir has the Death Knight under his employ. This facility is teeming with defenses, and I've only just arrived to assist you through them, so it is not as though I've had the time to reveal all to you in detail. Enough. Edelgard interrupts. What are we dealing with, Byleth, Hubert? I don't recognize this Nabatean, the Empress answers. Though I'm willing to bet it's the last saint. Hubert confirms, she has the right of it. This is what's left of Saint Mikul, now an oversized beast of burden under the control of the Agarthans and by extension Aegir. It's likely been implanted with the same device as Indek, Byleth theorizes. The rest of you, go inside. I'll put the creature out of his misery. Are you sure you can handle this? Edelgard asks. I'm the only one who can, Byleth responds. Now go. Claude grabs Edelgard's arm. "We have to move, Torchy." The revolutionary forces start swarming inside the fortress as Edelgard gives the order. The Windcaller dives towards the mass of soldiers, but a ball of fire explodes against his beak. He swerves through the air to regain his balance as he cries out. The Wind Dragon's eyes scan through the masses, filtering out sense until he lands his focus on a particular being. The dark figure of the Ashen Empress smells familiar, though he can't form any solid thoughts associated with the scent. As he squalls through the air towards Byleth, she thinks to herself, "Bad news is, he's a lot faster and more mobile than Indek." She attempts to leap out of the way of his dive bomb attack, but Mikule succeeds in nabbing her out of the air with his beak. He circles around and slams her into the side of the fortress, curling the metal underneath their force. Byleth grunts as she barely manages to retrieve her blade. She plunges it into the corner of his mouth and emerald blood leaks out. Mikule struggles under the pain as she uses her vast strength to begin prying apart his beak with all her might. His blood starts spilling out to a greater degree under the stress, and he screeches as he drops her. She groans as she rolls down the wall of the fortress and crashes into the ground below. Mikule flies upward, circling around and shaking off the pain while she pulls herself to her feet. "Good news is," she continues observing, "his hide isn't nearly as thick or heavy as Indek's." Mikule flies down, hovering a few dozen yards above Byleth. He opens his green-stained beak wide, loosing a ball of some sort of verdant magic. The Empress dashes away from the attack as it bursts into the ground. Strong gusts of wind accompany the strike as green energy swirls and fades, leading Byleth to assume the attack is some form of wind magic. She then sprints towards the beast, but he gives a mighty flap with his wings. A vortex of viridescent wind magic suddenly surrounds Byleth, lifting her off the ground and clashing against her armor. She flails in the air as Mikule plunges towards her. His scaly grip wraps around her, dark claws grinding against her armor. He maintains his plummet, slamming her down into the valley ground with his full weight on top of her. She screams out from the pain, struggling to pry his grip loose. Their immense strengths push against one another as Mikule strains to pin her down. Instead of wasting her energy to keep trying to force herself free, the Empress tenses her hand and jabs it into the foot of the creature gripping her. Her strength rivals his, but her size does not, which she uses to her advantage as her arm pierces through the scaly webbing on his foot like a small bullet. Mikule's green blood seeps around her arm, dripping onto the ground beneath him. His grasp loosens, though he still attempts to keep it as he opens his maw above her. Byleth sees an orange glow building in his throat, thrumming as he prepares another blast of heat. Yet, with her arms loose, she wriggles one hand free and reaches upwards. Runes form around her as a thunder spell crashes down on the back of Mikule's head, narrowly avoiding the device implanted on the base of his skull. Rather, one of his long horns draws the electricity, causing a surge of fire and sparks, setting the feathers on the back of his head alight. He chokes out a scream and jolts as his heat breath sprays far off to the side of the Empress, granting her enough time to slip out of his grip and under his heavy bulk before he can correct the beam of light. The Windcaller then opts to crush the Ashen Empress by dropping his weight down on top of her. However, a sharp agony punctures his stomach as he feels her blade protract into his gut. Then Aura slams down onto his back from the opposite side above him. Then another aura descends, igniting his feathers and compressing his torso. The Saint shrieks as he lifts himself up and lurches to the side, tumbling to his knees. Blood spatters beneath him from the gaping wound in his stomach, and yet more blood still trickles down his back, steaming and stinking from the heat of her magic. Byleth stands to her feet, coated in the lime liquid as she regains her balance. Mikule trembles as he widens his beak once more for another attempt at a heat breath strike. However, the Ashen Empress now has a much clearer opening on the cylindrical device embedded on his skull. She jumps upward and whips her sword forward in a rapid, nimble movement. The ebony blade whistles violently through the air as it sunders the device, spraying sparks everywhere. The dragon seizes as the artificial signals to fight cease surging throughout his body. A pale light envelops him and then starts disintegrating, dissolving his massive body with it. The Ashen Empress carefully watches as Mikule is reduced down to his humanoid form. Like Indek, he wears old prisoner rags, soaked with blood from the wound in his stomach, blood that stains both green and red, correlating with the transformation of his body. His cranium is bald, though an unkempt blonde-green beard scraggles and curls down to his chest. As expected, one of his ears is pointed. Yet, he's missing over half of his other ear. His body is hunched forward on his knees as he clutches his abdomen. "McCule," she hesitantly but softly calls as she approaches him. "Why, you mortals," he rasps. "You, and your vile greed," he heaves, scarlet blood dripping from the corner of his lip. "To hell with you, and your vain conflicts." The saint falls forward, body still curled. Byleth elects to give him a makeshift funeral pyre by igniting fire around him, deciding that is the most dignified end she can give him amongst the calling battle no doubt still raging inside. The halls of Fort Mercers are just as cold and metal as its exterior. Lifeless artificial lights line the ceilings as various troops of revolutionaries spread out through the facility to fend its imperial protectors. Slippery blood fails to seep into the steel floors as the Black Eagles, accompanied by Claude, follow Hubert, and Edelgard's lead through the corridors. They quickly discover that Hubert wasn't simply bluffing about his magic when he summons a fluid glob of dark magic, a Mire spell, onto a small group of enemies, partially crushing and dissolving their bodies. "Leave it to me, Lady Edelgard," he proudly sneers. "I will remove all obstacles on your path." "I appreciate the sentiment, Hubert," she furrows her brow. "I sincerely hope he doesn't turn out to be a second Monica." "How much further until we reach Aegir?" Claude interjects. "Not long," the Dark Bishop answers. "We have to ascend but a few more floors until we reach his panic room. I have no doubts that Lady Edelgard's immense strength coupled with my own superior magic will be more than a match for the blast door hiding the soon-to-be late governor." The Black Eagles fight their way through the facility until they reach an empty chamber. The area is dimly lit and quite spacious. But most alarming of all is its vacancy. "Hubert," Edelgard begins, "what is this?" "If I had to hazard a guess, I'd say we may have stumbled into a trap," he replies. "Be on your guard." A single crimson flash of light manifests at the opposite end of the room. The Death Knight stands alone, vibro scythe in hand. "Emil!" Mercedes cries out. "Do you mean to face us by yourself?" Edelgard gawks. "No," his deep voice replies. As he responds, more flashes of light warp in a few squads of enforcers behind the Black Eagles. "I won't let anyone else disrupt our duel. It ends tonight." Mercedes clasps her hands. "Emil, please. You don't have to do this." "I do not wish to hurt you, Mercedes," he stoically responds, "but I will kill you for the sake of my battle with the Flame Emperor. I must exterminate you all. Those are the terms under which I am allowed to fight." Edelgard rests her hand on Mercedes' shoulder. "I'm sorry, but I don't believe he's in a state of mind to listen to reason. The only way this ends is if we defeat him." As if to answer for Mercedes, the Imperials rush the Eagles. Edelgard's team responds in kind by fighting back against their forces. For her part, Edelgard meets the Death Knight, their weapons drawn. "This will be our final dance," he asserts, tone elevated in excitement. "I'm sorry that it's come to this, Emil." The Death Knight lunges for her, scraping his scythe against her shield. "Again you hide behind that sheet of metal," he grunts as sparks fly. She doesn't give him the satisfaction of a retort as she pushes forward with her shield. Rather than let himself lose balance like their previous encounter, the knight wraps one of his hands around the edge of her shield and attempts to wrest it from her grip. She plants her boots firmly into the ground and swings her torso, lifting up the knight and tossing him a few feet back. He lands on his feet and again lunges for her. He swings his scythe down above her further forward, endeavoring to bring the curve of his blade down around her defense. She adjusts her shield at the last second, parrying his attack. As the knight loses balance, Edelgard plunges her shoulder forward, slamming into his chest. He stumbles backward, but never completely drops his footing. Edelgard, as disturbed by him as she is, can't help but be impressed by his reflexes and ability to adapt. He settles his footing and takes a more defensive stance. "Yes," he moans. "That's it. Both of us, pushing each other to our limits. We have gotten far stronger because of our encounters. Killing you will have been a worthwhile investment. And killing you is a tragedy that should have been avoided," Edelgard responds. "There is no tragedy in either of our demises," the knight asserts. Only freedom for the weaklings of this world as they are liberated from us. I won't waste my time discussing this further with you, she bites as she charges for him. Edelgard swings her axe down, and he backsteps. He counters with an upward swing of his scythe, unbalancing her cumbersome shield. He then dashes forward and kicks at the shield to loosen it from her grasp, but she again plants her feet and absorbs the blow. She jabs her axe towards him, but he curves out of the way, arching his blade to her flank. She parries the strike with her axe and riposts at his abdomen. He backsteps, but not fast enough before the swell of her blade cleaves through his armor and lightly gashes his side. The Death Knight puts his hand over the wound, then brings his crimson-stained gauntlet up towards his face for examination. You managed to blood me. I'd warn you that I'll do more than that if you don't stand down, but I imagine that won't deter you. The knight groans rather than responds verbally. He takes an attack stance, then springs towards her. Edelgard catches him off guard by throwing her shield at him full force and sprints. He reflexively bashes aside the airborne shield just as Edelgard jumps forward and brings down her axe. The knight instinctively raises the haft of his scythe up in defense, shifting his stance for a backstep. But she's too swift for his reaction. Her vibro axe splits his weapon in two and gashes down through his torso. Steaming blood splatters outward against the floor and her armor as her blade passes through his flesh, then implants itself into the ground. There's a brief silence that stretches out eternally after that moment. The Death Knight's breathing grates as he gawks down at the gushing wound trailing from him upper chest down to his lower stomach. No doubt his thick armor is the only thing keeping his innards from spilling out. The Death Knight chuckles and chokes as he tumbles to his knees. To kill, do die. To know one without the other would be maddening. As he fully crumples to the ground, Edelgard scans around her. The last of his enforcers fall to the blades and magics of her allies, and the battle quiets down. Claude and Hubert return to her, along with Mercedes, who mournfully gazes upon the knight's fallen figure. Mercedes, I'm sorry, Edelgard shakes her head. There was no other way. Don't blame yourself, the doctor closes her eyes. We all needed to accept that this could eventually happen. What ailed him made him force this fight. I don't know if there was a way around it. This is the third time I've lost him, perhaps it was fate. They all startle when the Death Knight shifts and groans ever so slightly. Mercedes rushes to his side, dropping to her knees and removing his helmet. Emil, she murmurs as she puts his head in her lap. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault for leaving you behind when Mother and I left Father. I should have gone back for you sooner. I'm sorry for not being a better sister to you. Mare, seeds, he weakly rumbles out. Please forgive me, Emil. Edelgard tenderly grabs the doctor's shoulder. Mercedes, we need to go. Now. Goodbye, Mercedes softly whimpers to Emil as he finally stops breathing. Check the description for the links to the author.